people
Internet
can listen to
users
this.
Oh, is that where this
fighting,
is
Ray
that
would be
where
given a
Educated
platform
Stupid
for his
started?
theory, as well as the academic debate
Hell
which
is
he
gonna
so
be so
dearly
fucking
desired.
lit. Homos, feminists, porn freaks, pot smarters, smarters? What?
Sometime in
Smarters.
1999
Atheists,
and 2000, Jean Grey
thugs,
was
yoga
interviewed
pants
several times by a
cutters,
man
Muslims,
named Michael
witches,
William LeBron, better known by his pseudonym Lionel.
adulterers,
These
good God,
interviews took place
masturbators,
on the ill-fated
internal,
internet radio site
eternal
IATA, which shut down
damnation.
only 2 years after it was
Yeah,
created,
I
and
agree.
as
Hell is
such,
gonna
the
be so
interviews
fucking
appear
lit.
to have been lost. However, Lionel had a strong
Fucking
cult following,
me
and he helped spread the
Fucking
word about
every
the
night.
Timecube even further. In 2001, Jean Grey conducted
What?
another
Barney
interview
Mine.
with a much lesser-known man named Bruno Connolly. The
Wait,
first
what?
20
No,
minutes
no,
were
I didn't mean to
preserved by
leave the
Connolly
realm.
on
I'll need
tape
another
and
invite.
subsequently shared online.
Hello?
Hello, could I speak to Jean Ray, please?
Hey, Jean Ray.
Hey, Jean, my name's Bruno. I'm calling from San Francisco, California,
I'm sorry.
and I'm doing a little
Who's this
study
about
on the
when
time
we
cube, and I was
snort my
wondering if you might have a few
mouth?
minutes to chat with me about it.
Sure.
So, so maybe if you could just explain.
Much
to me
of what he discussed was a rehashing of his website, but it helped to clarify
is
just
it?
how closely his philosophy of a four-stage life
I want
cycle
some snacks.
correlated with his views of the GameCube.
Story of my life.
Corner, or one corner. Just in like
Snacks are
human
delicious.
metamorphosis that.
And
like
nutritious
That's great. I'm
for
just
only
gonna
me.
got the baby, the child, the parent, and grandparent.
That is crap,
And
but
you,
like that's
you can't
fine.
be four at one time. The baby dies, come the child, the child
What's up,
dies,
babe?
come
I
the
took
parent,
the,
parent dies, come the grandparent.
Golden,
Everything
not golden.
created has a
diamond
top,
armor
bottom,
freaking-
front, back, and two sides.
That's fine.
The solar system has that.
Mainly
Earth
because
has
I'm the
that.
one who's probably
He
gonna end
also
up
took
being
the time to
stupid.
clarify his numerology.
You know, like you had four
And I'm the one who
grandparents,
gets
and
attached
each of
to
them had
animals
four,
on the game,
like
not you.
16. But you don't
You're just
use
like, oh, he
16
died, whoops.
because that
I was like,
they
what the
mean the value of four. What you actually have is four fours.
Ray's thoughts on religion and his experiences online were also shared.
So what about a concept? I don't want to use the word God, but you know, of some creator, some higher being, et cetera, et cetera. How does that tie into the time cube and the theory of fours and?
Well, the creation, creator, is not not a human form.
Where the hell
It's
are you?
more of a cubic spirit. A
I
cubic
am-
spirit.
I am by
To the best of your
couple
knowledge,
ships.
are you the first person to have discovered the time cube?
Oh,
Yes, I
I
can't
thought you were
find
in
anything
house.
anywhere.
You're
Nope,
not
I'm-
over
Through
here.
me, I used
I'm
to
exploring.
get on some of the internet
not allowed.
scientific and philosophy boards. And they threw me
Okay.
off while I was
You're allowed.
compromised
I'm just-
with them. And
I'm
so
not
that's
about
when I
them
started
still.
the time cube. And
He
way it-
claimed that he'd been working on the theory for 20 years.
God,
I've
excuse
been
me.
working on it over 20 years, and I can't find anything else,
Listen,
anything yet that contradicts it.
today's just
Towards
not
the
my
end
day
of the
for being
recording,
on
Ray
mic.
reiterates his desire for a debate, but
fine.
partway through his idea, he seems
my
to get
God.
distracted.
Jesus,
Lionel show up
excuse me.
and
Fuck.
Mac and
on
cheese
that
is really good,
Yachty, and
It's not that, it's the
on these,
Pepsi I drank.
web stations, and
Just gassy.
I mean, he's got a big audience.
Carbonate.
He likes it,
Just like
and,
2 songs.
So, hey, let me ask you another question. Did you know your father was a fish?
My father was a fish. No.
yep,
Please
yep.
explain.
Your father was a
What?
fish.
It's a little a micro sperm fish. I mean,
Yep.
the sperm is-
Your father was a
Connolly
fish.
able to receive an interview with Ray caught the attention of those interested in the time cube.
Naturally.
It wasn't long before others took advantage of his
We all
desperation to share
aspire
his
to be
theories
According
Raised
in
by
a
to
form that he
me, you're
could
still
not
in the realm,
refuse.
come
Laura.
up with in this thing.
I'm here.
But see, what religion does
Can
primarily,
everyone sleep, please?
I'll consider it. Hold on.
No, I cannot.
Sometime in late
Slash sleep is
November
not
of 2001, Jean Ray made an announcement.
I'm in a
to
random
stop
village,
his
so I'm not know
Time
if I can
Cube
find a
lecture
bed.
at MIT on January
at a
30th,
floating
2002,
I
from
guess I
3
can-
Hey,
p.m.
Gray,
to
come
5
here.
p.m.
Oh.
in lecture
Now I'm
hall
in the end.
10250.
Right now.
Outsiders
Good up,
are
villager.
banned from Time Cube lecture and debate,
There you
as
go.
only MIT students will be allowed to attend the event. Will free speech be allowed? Almost immediately, word
Should
began
I
to
move your
spread.
bed to the
On December
bakery,
1st,
babe?
the lecture date was shared on the Ars
What?
Technica forums, where forumites
I
awaited
said
the
babe.
event gleefully.
That-
Though
that
the full
usually means
recording of
boyfriend.
the event
Oh,
appears
come
to
on,
be
why
lost
can't I be
to
the
notes
boyfriend?
of one attendee, one
Thanks for
photo,
that.
and a small
I can have a
video
penis too,
online,
you know.
and they detail a surreal
Aura's
scene.
dream
There
to
were
have
6
you.
seats at the front of the lecture hall. One was for Jean Ray, 4 were for the
Not
students who
me.
agreed to debate him, and
Okay,
1
maybe
was
Not
a
a
video
penis.
his request, which he labeled as "Your God." According to the note taker, hundreds
had
of
a date
people
with
were
a
in
guy
who
attendance,
touches
and
your
this is
leg,
corroborated
feel
by the
something
small
weird, and
shred
you're
of
like,
video that
"It's not a
remains
peen."
online.
It's not
Throughout
a
the
peen.
event, the
Not
crowd
a
of
peen.
college students
It's
was
a
rowdy
tentacle.
and loud, cheering on the support of Ray. Apparently, no faculty were present.
They know him
The
if he
note taker
teach.
said of Ray's speech patterns, quote, "You know the mumbly guy on King
Fish
of
in
the
my
Hill,
pants for shit.
Boomhauer?
It smells
Well, imagine
fishy!
he was
Oh,
reading
sorry,
straight
that's
from
me. Just-
Timecube.com. That's what it was like
Never
listening
mind.
to Gene Ray talk. It sounded like a train of consciousness, but he kept on using different examples, only repeating the time cube has 4 corners aspect. After Ray's description of the time cube, the other people
It's
at the
the
table
most
had
important
the
aspect.
opportunity to ask
It has
him
4
questions.
corners. It's the only
During
thing you
this
need to
period,
know.
When Ray would give responses,
It has
the
4
crowd would
corners.
shout wildly in support of him.
What more do you
corners do you
fucking
need to know
want?
By the panel were mostly attempts to divulge
This isn't
Ray's
time
thought process.
decahedron,
The note taker
motherfucker.
writes, Eric Downs asks about people being made of different numbers of parts. Humans are a pyramid with 2 arms
Fucking
and 2
time
legs,
cube.
I guess, and each of those has 4 main digits on it for a total of 16. Of course, and this I swear is a direct quote, you don't say 16 because that would demean the value of 4. That got another wild hoot of approval from the
What?
lecture hall. Victor Brar asked
Open
the
your
next
mouth,
question.
woman!
Gene says that
Out your
-1
nose!
times -1 equals +1 is stupid and evil.
I'm trying to
so
hold it
Victor
back
asks
as
him to explain
much
more.
as possible,
Gene goes
but if
off
I
of his
do, I might
previous
barf.
explanation
Turn
about
your
the North
head!
Pole and the South Pole
Stop
and
chugging
various
pop!
races, and explains
Turn
like
your head
this.
and cough.
1 times 1 equals 1
Here, we'll
makes
do a good
sense because
grasp.
that's like saying that a North American
Oh.
times a North American equals a North American. But
Yes.
saying -1 times -1 equals 1 is like saying a South American times a South American equals a North American. Okay, Gene, so -1 times -1 should equal what?
Okay.
A South American! I stopped writing notes here for about 5 minutes. I was so busy laughing. The audience was also invited to ask questions, and a few glimpses into Ray's life were given. The note taker writes, "A university told him, we'll put you in jail if you send us another fax." Someone asked the question a lot of us must have been wondering. How do you finance your research? Gene beamed proudly and proclaimed, "Credit cards." Ray also talked about his belief that the 4 corners of his time
Wow.
cube also represented what he perceived as the 4 human races, which were, in his words, whites, blacks, Asians, and Indians. Hoping to get more out of him, one of the audience members probed
Yeah,
further. Per
First
the
Nation
note
people
taker,
don't exist.
delving further into his 4 corners, 4 races point, a student asked
Oh,
how people
this-
who aren't in those 4 races
Everyone
fit in.
knows Native
Gene explained
Americans
that they
don't
fit
exist.
inside the
Nope.
time cube.
They don't exist
The
at
student
all.
said, "Well, I'm biracial," at which point Gene interrupted and said, "You're what?" Around this point, students gradually began to leave the lecture hall and the debate was adjourned. But this only marked the beginning of Ray's surge into wider cult popularity.
My brain hurt.
This man. He believes it, man. He believes it.
After this lecture,
It's
word of
all
mouth
real.
spread knowledge of the existence of the site and of Gene Ray. In
Oh,
particular,
God.
2 groups seemed interested in him, internet users and college students, though there was significant overlap between the 2. Over time, as this interested body would interview him, new
Oh yeah, the
information
internet is
began to
still there, right?
reached out.
Yes.
On October 15th,
Okay.
Yeah,
8.5
okay.
months after
Yep.
his debate at MIT, a
It's all yours.
transcribed interview was published in a student newspaper
Wanted
of
to make
Swarthmore
sure.
College in Pennsylvania. Kate Duffy, the author of the piece,
I
entitled
haven't gotten
Truth
bored
is
and
Cubic,
thrown
wrote
bored
a
and
few
thrown in
notes she had
slimes for
learned about
shits
him
and
in the
giggles.
introduction. She revealed that Ray was 75 years old
I
and that he had been
tend
an
to
electrician.
make like go to
Over the
nether
course of his
portals and then
research,
just fill
he
another
claimed that he
portal
had spent
room with
approximately 250
slimes, and if
they
hours
fall
in, they
pursuing
fall
the
in.
Time cube, and that he had received death threats from NASA.
Yes.
Duffy also shared that Ray lived in Cummings,
It's
Georgia.
fun.
Her
It's a
questions
pleasant,
were fairly
unpleasant
simple,
surprise.
asking about the basics of the time cube, but he
Excuse me.
also revealed
Slimes.
tidbits about his personal life. He said,
Schlemmer.
quote, "My brothers and
Slimes.
sisters have some of the highest academic
Slimes never really
degrees in
hurt
Alabama,
anyone.
but they
Just a
don't
little
want
bit.
to know what I know."
Aside from
He
everyone.
also revealed a bit of information about the
It's
emails
like,
he
oh, no.
received. Quote, "I get email from
I
kids
liked
all
it
the time.
anyway."
Some were suspended for looking at my website at school. I get a lot of email from students saying I should be elected president of their student body and that they'd fight the police, but the school threatens to kick them out. Physics majors want a time cube debate at Cornell." He revealed the logic behind his aggressive prose. "I had to get nasty on the website because educators refuse to allow students to debate time cube. I can't throw rocks at them, so the only way I can accuse them is
Because
in a
it's
nasty
nonsense,
way. I
man.
have to do this so they'll stop ignoring it. They'd be exposed, all educators. I've sent stuff to Stephen Hawking in England, but they all ignore it. They teach linear time. Time is not linear, it's cubic. Academia does not want it. Professors run and hide. I can call them the worst names in the book, and they run and hide. They cannot challenge me. They cannot accept the challenge because they would lose. I could break the plate.
Yeah.
They would lose because you're
I
insane.
guarantee they wouldn't take me to
What
court.
are you talking
because
about,
Time
Pete?
Cube
What are you
could
talking
not
about?
come
He
out in the
speak the
media.
truth.
Come on, man.
People learned of Ray.
You
Internet
know he's
users would
right.
Sometimes
We all
email
know
him
it.
to egg him on, as he had
Obviously,
suggested
Time
in
is
his interview
Cube.
with Duffy. In November of 2002, he posted one of these emails he had
What else
received
can
in
it
late
be?
October without comment. It read, "For a year now, I have studied your Time Cube
Stein-
truths, but have not
the
been able to
fucking
convince others of its reality.
time theory that
Dumbasses.
Steins
My
Gate
mother
had.
was a teacher, and she said it was nutty and stupid.
I
Guess
enjoyed
what?
Steingates.
I cornered her, literally, in the living room one evening and
That was
forced her
good.
to admit it. In
Jesus.
order to get her
The
teaching
games and the
certificate,
anime was
she had
good.
to sign an
I never
affidavit
played the games,
stating that she
or
would
know
uphold
much
the
about
Greenwich
them.
myth until death. I shit you not. It has been revealed. American teachers are sworn to fight against the truth of Time Cube. Inevitably,
I
it
like
attracted the
Stein's
interest of a
theory on
tongue-in-cheek
time.
show called Unscrewed, airing on Tech TV at the time. They bought him a plane ticket to San Francisco and interviewed him.
Unfortunately,
on
I don't think I
June
remember
18th,
much of his actual
2003,
theories.
with a set of questions
Oh.
prepared, ready to
For
push back
Basically,
some of
time
Ray's
is
more
So
befuddled
I
somewhat
am
linear,
Ray
that
uses
you
his
have
favorite
but
a
prop,
great
it's more
plastic
strands.
paperweight with a globe
Ah.
inside to illustrate
Oh, okay.
his point.
Gene, how do you know this? What's your proof, scientifically
Oh,
speaking?
thank you.
Well, here's in
Victims.
the cube. You can see it. You can't
Welcome.
deny that. Offering academic institution, any professor,
Llamas.
$1,000 to disprove it. They can't disprove
Okay, I
it,
need
so they
to see
ignore it
this
and run and
motherfucker's
hide.
face.
He was able to share some of his thoughts about the debate at MIT, and he seemed to believe that he had been lauded rather than mocked.
Gotcha. You know, I can't help notice that you're wearing a hat that says Time Cube from MIT 2002. Did you, are you a professor at MIT? Did you teach this at MIT? What's the story?
No, I lectured up there last year. It was a student thing. Had about 500 students from MIT, Harvard, and many other universities around there. And they treated me like Einstein now. At the school, I had found out was hedge off. Then the professor would come down and explain the Time Cube and disprove it. But they run and hide. They cannot, academic cannot allow this to be known because it contradicts everything that they're teaching.
He also gave his thoughts
that's
about
a question
being
about
so
it.
well known on the internet.
Hey, Ray, Gene, how do you feel about being an internet celebrity? I mean, you're huge on the web.
Well, it's not a position I wanted. It's something I had to do.
Yeah.
And no, like I'm not a writer or
Like, it's
speaker,
just-
but
yeah.
no writer or speaker understands the Time Cube.
All right. Hey, Gene, thanks so much, and good luck with your quest to convince humanity of the Time Cube principle.
Thank you.
All right, that's Gene Ray.
Over the next few years, this attention would inflate Gene Ray's ego
Yay!
even further. Unable
The
to
chickens
change
are
the
drowning
minds of
before
any
they hit the
educators,
surface.
He awarded himself
Cool.
a doctorate of cubicism
I
in
found one
late
of your chicken
2002
plateaus.
or early
Oh.
2003, declaring that nobody could bestow it
Whatever
upon
that was
him
all about.
since he was already the wisest human ever. In October of 2003,
Just
Ray
what it looks
casually
like.
posted a surprising piece of writing revealing a fact about himself that elucidated a key element of how he had come to his conclusions. He stated
I
that,
troll mostly in
quote,
chickens.
"My wisdom so antiquates known knowledge that a psychiatrist
most delicious
examining
troll.
my behavior, eccentric by his academic single-corner
I mean, at least you know you won't
knows
starve.
No course other than to judge me schizophrenic." This revelation was of little surprise to most onlookers, many of whom had speculated that Ray suffered
believe
from
it.
I don't know how
some
these
sort of
chickens are
mental
living.
illness, but this didn't stop them from egging him on.
Through sheer
Bloating his
power of
ego
will.
further,
They really
Gene
are.
Ray was invited to
I found
perform a
this huge
lecture on
ravine,
April
there's
14th,
bubbles and stuff,
2005.
and
This one at the
chickens
Georgia
are just kinda
Institute of
hovering here,
Technology in
living.
Atlanta. It
If
was
this story
advertised on the
proves
campus with a
anything,
flyer
it's that
which included
people are
some of Ray's more
dicks.
outlandish quotes, such as,
Lord.
"Life is based upon a perfect map,
Oh.
where your arm would be too
It's
short
like,
to wipe your butt."
oh, this
A
guy-
DVD
look
containing
at this
footage
guy.
of both this event and
Corners
lectures
of
at
the
MIT
fucking
was
side.
produced, but the site
What a
selling it has
fucking
since gone
idiot.
down, and nobody who owned a copy of
Let's
it
take
him on.
uploaded its contents.
Fine, we'll just say
According to the website where it was being
I found a
sold
really
on
cool
the
place
site,
if anybody wants to check it out.
30 people,
That's why
though the
clocks
trailer
are
for the
red.
DVD reveals the tone that it took on.
Oh, caboose.
Time Cube is, in fact, a theory of everything. I believe we've come to that conclusion. I would like to know how to apply it in order to get a date.
What none of these onlookers could have suspected, however, was that
Did not
soon,
expect that.
Gene Ray would acquire his
Oh,
first
hi.
You have
truly
found a cool place.
enthusiastic
I
and
found a cool
earnest
place.
adherent.
No, it is a cool place.
I
Is
found
that-
a treasure map. I'm trying to dig it up, but it's not
On March
doing, it's not
7,
going so well.
2005,
What
only
a
a
cool
month
bridge
after
waves
Gene
and
Ray's
stuff.
lecture in
It-
Atlanta, an Australian internet user by the pseudonym
It's crazy
Cubehead
how
joined the
much
forum
you can
Graveyard of
explore
the
now.
Gods, designed
I
specifically
know,
for
without
gaming
killing
discussion.
things.
He began enthusiastically promoting Jean Ray's Time Cube.
I wish
it's
the
almost
tenets that
it's
Ray was
almost like
espousing on his website with similar
Microsoft has
rhetoric
made it
while
so that
airing
you can
interpretations
you're
of his own.
only supposed to
Intrigued and
use
entertained by
realms
Cubehead's
instead of
posts,
servers
they
now.
created a special board specifically for Cubehead
I mean,
and
servers are
Time
still
Cube
better.
discussion. Unfortunately,
Realms
Oh,
are
yeah, no,
all
servers
of
are
Cubehead's
definitely better.
posts have been lost,
Just
as has the
The
initial iteration of his personal
1.15
website
is not
dedicated to
optimized
TimeCube,
at all
named Cubic
for
Awareness
multiplayer
Online,
on
which he
servers.
launched in
It's optimized
2004.
for
However, the
realms.
second version of the site, released on January
sucks.
20th, 2006,
Oh,
remains.
there's some lava over here. Ooh, here's a nice cool
Well,
spot,
it's-
Percival.
It contains three main
New
It's
sections.
just on the
updates
other
in
side
my
of one of
verse
these
The first
mountains.
to the
Better
core
now.
principles of the Time Cube, the second to evidence of the
Oh,
Time Cube
that'd
in
be a cool
nature,
spot to
and the
stick
third
a
about
building.
how the Time Cube impacts humanity, all neatly color-coded. Also of note was a section attempting to construct an axiomatic proof of the Time Cube in 64 cases,
Not any
as well as a
particular
link
type
taking
of shaded
readers back
building
to the
there,
Time
or-
Cube board on Graveyard of the Gods.
I
Later
mean,
that
Not a
year,
peen.
he began
No, no,
posting
no,
YouTube
no, definitely
videos
not a
under the
peen.
name Pyramid.
Maybe a
and he
vagina?
linked to these videos on his website
I mean,
as
we could
well.
use some
His
pink
first
clay and
video
stuff.
was published on September
Maybe a
3rd,
vagina.
2006, 9 months after the
Vagina.
launch of the Cubic Awareness Online website.
I gotta
but
do
his
that.
line delivery
It's a
and
really
video
cool spot. It's
production
it's one of those little
believed
nooks inside
he
a
was
big
mocking
cave.
the theory, or simply
So,
attempting
what
to
can an
make camp
operator
humor.
of a realm do?
want to know if God exists.
Wait, what?
What can an operator of a realm do?
Basically
No.
anything on a server. They can have access to server commands and all that. They can ban people. They can't
okay.
invite new members though.
The following day, he
Oh,
published
wow.
The Death of Steve
Server
Irwin.
owner.
He died.
There it
Well,
is. Got a
he's
nice
like-
layout
his
in it.
belief that he was making a joke out of Jean Ray.
Ooh, there's a lot of
In it,
nice
he
flatlands
awkwardly
over here.
transitions from talking about Steve Irwin's death to advocating for the Time Cube.
During his
Steve
life,
Irwin's
no one
death
saved
took the
crocodiles
time
and giant
cube.
Galapagos tortoises. Now that he has died, it's time that we not only save the crocodiles, but also save humanity. We need to use Time Cube in order to save humanity. At the time of his death, Steve Irwin was aged 44. 4 is the supreme number of the universe.
Viewers were appalled
Or
by
it's
his
a
lack of
superior
tact.
number,
Responding
truly.
to the criticism, he edited the About section of the video to read, This
Oh.
video is respectful. It's not meant to insult Mr. Irwin or those who mourn his death. Please don't flame me or make threats against me. It was not my intent to offend people. Thank you. See website www.cubicao.tk for more TimeCube information. Over the next 2 months, Cubehead would post a total of 8 TimeCube related videos, along with 2 short
Cubehead
films
related
utilizing
information.
basic 3D
That's
animation.
a fucking sentence.
God damn it. I need
Language is
assistance.
Language
what's
is a
up?
powerful
The
thing.
fervor with which
trying to find
Cubehead
treasure, but it ain't
proselytized the
working out for you,
TimeCube
boy.
didn't go
Oh,
unnoticed by
good luck.
Jean Ray, and
If I come
sometime
across
in
something.
2007, the two apparently
No,
were in
I have the map,
communication.
and
In
I'm thinking
February,
around the
Cubehead
X,
posted
but
an update to the
Oh.
Cubic AO
Water and being a
website stating
bitch.
that Ray had personally given him advice.
That's
However,
interesting.
the attention from Ray
Just go
wasn't
quickly make a door,
entirely
and then you can make a
positive.
door underwater.
Sometime in
That
August,
gives you
Ray
instant air.
added an update to his site.
Oh,
which
is that
read,
how that
"The
works
only
now?"
official site for Jean Ray /
always-
Time
that's always how
Cube,
it's
so
been.
beware of associates.
I use
No
torches.
one
Doors-
by
doors are
wisdom.
balls.
In light of this,
Oh, okay.
Cubehead made
Changed my
another
mind.
addition to the
Snipper.
website after consulting
Yeah.
him. He
Oh,
wrote a
well.
disclaimer displayed in
So
small
please
orange
don't
font
die.
at the very
Toss the
top
map
of the
out.
page, and it appeared that, despite Ray's heartfelt
Toss the map
desire
out.
to have information on the Time Cube spread out across
Oh,
the world,
can you help him
he
with that?
also was quite possessive of it. It read, Disclaimer, this Cubic AO website doesn't claim to offer any Cubic prophecies. This
A cute
Cubic
little
AO
village.
site is a secondary, unofficial site that is subordinate to timecube.com. This Cubic
Hey,
AO
stop
site is not
scratching the
intended to be
couch.
glorified
No.
above
so
timecube.com.
bad.
Scientists don't know what gravity is. They don't know what physics is. We must attack the scientists, academia, and religion, or face cannibalism like Easter Island. Cubic AO is not intended to be more powerful than Dr. Jean Ray's TimeCube site, and indeed, Cubic
TimeCube!
AO is separate from Dr. Jean Ray's
He's
TimeCube
truly
site.
gone
This
insane.
Cubic AO site is not intended to contain excessive amounts of artwork. What this last sentence precisely means is unclear. Despite this rebuke, Cubehead would still be granted one of the things he dearly, the opportunity to meet Jean Ray in person, and this encounter would prove to offer more information about him than any other interaction so far. On November 21st, 2007, Cubehead uploaded the first episode of the Dr. Jean Ray Time Cube Experience. This video series would be released piecemeal over the next 2 months in 8 to 10 minute segments due to the video length limitations in place on YouTube at the time.
Hi, I'm Richard Yancharsky,
Did that
second
ju-
wisest
did
human.
that just-
However, it is Dr. Jean Ray, Cubic,
Did that
who is
just
the
go-
wisest human on Earth. I visited Dr. Ray in the USA.
go out and
discussed
then just
within
straight
nature's
down.
Time cube. While traveling by plane across America,
You
a
are
large
not
storm
Kobe,
brewed
not
itself
even
up,
close.
and a cubeless
There
conspiracy
you go.
caused several flights to
Now I
Atlanta to
can
be
see.
cancelled. But I caught a flight the next day, and when I eventually arrived in Dr. Ray's hometown,
I think
Dr. Ray
chicken's
drove
gonna
his
stick in
car
here
over to pick
before
me
they
up
start squishing
outside
each
the
other.
Waffle House.
25.
Yancharsky had
Or
arrived
24.
on August 2nd, 3.5
Well, I
months
found
after
a
the video
random
was
pen
edited
that I'm
and
just
posted.
filling with chickens.
After Ray asked Yancharsky about his flight
If it's a
and
single
his
black
age,
piece,
he was quick to
24
reveal
mobs
information
per
about
squish
himself,
limit.
speaking of his childhood and
I
his
should be
family.
there.
You got brothers and sisters?
I have a younger sister. I have one younger sister.
Don't forget, I am one.
In my family, I was one of 14.
Alright.
We lived out in the cotton fields, pick cotton and that kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And I got 2 daughters. One of them has a son.
Villager is just watching me just pour chickens into this pen.
Got married.
Oh, they're finally getting squished.
My grandson,
The cow's starting to die.
he has,
We lost the cow.
2 boys and a girl. So I'm on my 4th corner.
Yeah.
Okay? 4th generation.
Yeah, the
4 corners of the pyramid.
Yeah, the four-corner life metamorphosis.
Yeah.
Once they arrived at Ray's home, he began to show some of his merchandise and the drawings that he had scanned for
okay, Dad.
TimeCube.com.
Right, so cubic thought reigns as the highest power, Jean Ray Cubic. Yeah, and the back of it says, I am born Cubic, the wisest human and the greatest thinker at www.timecube.com. Yeah. So that's a good t-shirt to wear.
Cheers to
And
Time
inform
Cube.
people about the Time Cube.
Damn it. Y'all about to
So
haul.
that's a flyer.
I don't know if I can cheers the fucking thing.
Oh, come on.
Yeah.
The man just, you know, was beyond his time. We'll all be doomed if we don't embrace the Time Cube. Whatever Time Cube is. Our educated minds can't handle it.
It's
very advanced.
See, you can't disprove this, see?
Yeah, they can't disprove it.
Pyramid, like you have 4 heads in your hand.
You know what? Sorry, mine.
God, you
My
say no
education
kink
doesn't work
shaming.
that
Yeah.
It's a different type. You got a old age pyramid, you got a dark pyramid, and then you got the sundown pyramid.
Sorry, I'm native. Apparently, I don't
These
exist in
videos
the
would also reveal
cube
personal
races.
moments, including a visit from his grandchildren.
I'm actually only half a person.
There it is.
Parrots and bats?
Where that?
It's like the birds and the
The
bees.
two of them went out to a shed where Ray had
I
stored
take
without
the
photos,
pictures.
papers, and
as
notes
tribute.
relating to the Time Cube,
That's
as
fine.
well as printed copies of his
Hold on, I need to
emails from
dump some
supporters
of this
and
stuff. I have
detractors
too
on the
much.
internet.
I picked up way too much.
There's someone.
Alright. Flint, you
Yeah, I
go.
gotta go through all this stuff.
Okay.
This
Steps,
stuff would
you
be
go.
better than the notes that Galileo left.
Cobblestone, you
Oh,
go.
right, okay. Yeah.
What was he
Alright, where
famous
that?
for?
Just the idea that
By the way, this map does
heliocentric
not-
idea that Earth revolves around the sun.
The
Yeah.
sun is the sun of the universe.
I hate this map.
But you know he was wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
Because you know what the sun of the universe is?
It doesn't have a center. It's composed of opposites.
Right now, well, it's the binary
Oh yeah.
of the sun and the earth,
Yeah. Okay.
which what gives,
Yeah,
creates
okay.
life.
Yeah.
It's the two of them together.
He's just a yes man.
Now the sun has the heat on the outside. It's big like the masculinity.
Yeah.
Earth is small like a femininity. It's got the heat inside.
Yeah.
Pink
After this
inside.
discussion, Yancharsky sat Ray down to ask
Yes.
basic questions about the Time Cube, a discussion which was edited down to a total of approximately an hour, Over the course of this interview, Ray slouches farther and farther down his seat as he appears to grow tired and frustrated.
Poor
Here,
boomer's
Ray
running out of
reveals a
energy.
bit more about his theory, showcasing some of his misunderstanding about mathematics and physics.
Even the individual is composed of opposites. You don't have two hands, they are opposite hands. And if you put them together, they don't add up to two. They cancel out because they're like plus and
So you have no hands?
So if I clap, I have Schrodinger's hands.
I have Schrodinger's cheeks if I twerk.
what?
It's vertical edges.
Well, it's like a classroom. The teacher
Oh,
tells you
he's
to go
one.
stand in a corner. Then you only have 4 choices. 4 corners. They used to put dunce shoes there and put a dunce hat on you. But there are only 4 corners inside of a classroom. And it debunks 3 dimensions. Because there are 4 corner perspective
Sorry,
dimensions.
Snipper, you just
4
can't breathe
different
underwater
corner
forever.
perspective dimensions. Not 3. 3 dimensions.
I was
One
like,
is snap.
I'm tired of you having to go up and you're dying. Here's water breathing.
Value of pi.
That's perfectly understandable. Thank you for
The,
the help.
the
You're on turtle shell.
3.0 value of
Because I would have
pi.
taken all day to find that goddamn thing.
Well,
I just stood in a circle, very cautiously breaking the
they
sand
use the
until it stopped
96. 4
falling.
times 24 is 96. That's the value of the cube. They use that instead of 100. Then the value of pi
Oh, they're not
would be 3.20,
What?
which is the perfect pi, 80% of 4. Well, if you stand in the middle row,
Can this map work for your map room?
well, from one side or one pole, things go to the left.
It's very small.
On the opposite side, they go to the right.
But can't you like add to them?
If you, they're totally opposite.
Yeah, you can expand it out
Doesn't matter.
eventually.
If you add them together, they cancel out.
Ray also revealed that he was working on a book with
I'm
new
also probably
illustrated
gonna
diagrams.
move the map room.
See, that looks like
I
the
could
spider
probably
right
need
here.
some
See how the
saving because I
spider?
may have lost. I can't
See,
get
these
home.
things are going out here and these are going back that way, see? See, it looks like
Wait.
a spider.
Oh, motherfucker.
But
You need
now we need
someone
to
to
put these in
teleport
the
you.
book.
Yes, that'd be nice, thank you.
We don't need
All right,
to
don't move.
Riverside or something yet.
Can
We
I
need
see
to get
the
the book
page?
printed with these
What?
kind of things
Oh,
on there.
hello, thank you.
Ray's logic behind the difficult-to-read
Run.
format of the website was also
noticed.
explained.
If you give them a page, a small print, they'll read part of it and give it back to you.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they use fine print in contracts, because you don't read it.
The auction house is finished.
So that's reading,
Nice.
the big print is like a billboard.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Once you see it, you have read it.
Like, auction house.
Yeah.
No
Well, see,
mobs
now
should
use big
spawn
print.
in it.
Yeah.
You don't have to read it.
At one
Oh,
point,
shit.
Ian
Okay,
Trusty
maybe
joins Ray and some of
maybe
his friends
Phantoms
for
can,
lunch,
but-
revealing that Ray is at least not entirely isolated from social interaction.
Do those people in there end up accepting the time cube, or do
Fuck
they
you.
believe in the religious beliefs too
Well,
much?
they're mostly religious.
Ow.
They're praying next to you. Most of them are just very much religious.
Going home. I'm going home. Leave me alone, I swear.
But at the same time, they understand what I'm talking about.
Ow.
Later in the series, Ray reveals even more about his personal history as the two drive through a thunderstorm.
Tell me about your early life. What was your childhood like as one of 14 children?
Very, very poor. And we lived on the farm, picking cotton,
Thank you for the escort.
had our own garden.
Okay.
I didn't
so
do
here's
anything.
something, bitch.
Canned vegetables for the winter.
Fortunately, sorry, Twitch, I can't see chat, I don't think.
You have the heart of the PT?
We make our own
I
game.
have the hot
Of the TT.
Once they
Alright.
returned, Ray revealed what he had been doing before he devoted
Yeah, you
his
just gotta
life
borrow
to his
some
time
Nautilus
cube
shells.
theory.
And this is probably the best book on the game of marbles that's ever been written. And see, that's a bag, a ton of marbles in it, see?
So that's a drawing of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you write the kind of comprehensive description of the game of marbles and with all the diagrams and everything to describe how the game works. Wow.
He then details how marbles is the perfect representation of the time cube, combining his passion with his theory.
Right, so how does the game of marbles relate to the time cube? How does it relate to the kind of natural harmony?
Well, because the circle is the embodiment, like the egg. And the circle has no
But why isn't it a cube?
It's divided. It's divided when the two players represent the opposite spirits. Put the marbles in. Both of them put the marbles in there.
My brain
Which
is
is
not
the universe. And so therefore they divide in the circle into two parts and four parts. See, and the light in the
But why
marbles
two parts? That's not a
represent
cube.
cells. And the light is the
I'm
action.
asking for logic,
And when
man.
all the cells are knocked out,
Us educated people will never understand.
No, it's obvious. It's half of the prime mega number that is 4. So it's okay, too.
The last episode shows video of Jean Ray being
It
interviewed
doesn't
again
sound
by
like I'm
Lionel,
speaking
where he
words.
desperately attempts to explain the time cube.
It's not English.
Do I sound smart yet, Ma?
But despite Ray's receptiveness during Yancharski's stay, things would quickly deteriorate in a catastrophic way.
Each quadrant rotates its own 24 hours.
It's so crazy.
Sometime in mid-August,
What did they
after
do to you,
Yancharski
child?
had returned
What did
home
they
to
do to you?
Australia, Ray wrote a short update on his website. CubicAO.tk trashes my site with my data and his erroneous prophecy crap. I denounce CubicAO.tk as harmful to TimeCube and copyright infringement. This message was so important to Ray that he made sure that it was always displayed at the top of his site, even as he made new additions. Despite this negative attention, Yancharski uploaded the videos anyways, but this rejection from his hero took its toll on his already fragile psyche. On February 13th, 2008, a new user on the Graveyard of the Gods forums by the name of HandsChess made a post. The contents read, "My former student Richard Yancharski died yesterday. He took his own life. I did an internet search on him and found this forum. I registered so that I could inform you of this. Richard played the violin and benefited a great deal from music. He was a shy student and found it difficult to fit in. He was a gifted computer programmer. I'm sure he brought lively debate and hopefully contributed to stretching people's thinking, even if different from their own ideas. Please give him a thought. Regards, Hans." Forumites were understandably dubious, wanting evidence of the death. Quickly finding his profile on Facebook, one user reached out to some of Yancharski's friends who revealed that he had leapt in front of a train in view of a large crowd. Another friend created an account as well to speak of him. Quote, "To those who knew him in high school, he really disappeared off the radar for a few years until November last year, when we ran into him drinking by himself at the pub. Everyone's reaction here was fucked, but not overly surprised. In recent times, he had been slipping into depression, pro-Nazi white supremacy propaganda, and losing focus on goals in life. There was so much more into his life, which has more disturbing elements than time, but now isn't really the best time to go into them."
I actually been watching a lot of
Yancharski as, quote, "an amazing poet and philosopher, a man with such passion and ideals. He was a tormented soul who was searching for his way in this world. Sadly, he succumbed to the mental disorders that he suffered. Sometime later, his gravestone was discovered, bearing the date of death that Hans had mentioned. The inscription reads, 'Profoundly treasured.
Oh, you know how to do those weird things.
Our little prince who is at peace now.'"
It's far too much time.
Unknowing, or perhaps uncaring, Jean Ray continued to update his site. Eventually, he would remove any reference to
does anybody want a tiny little island, or do we want to put a waypoint at an island?
The only official site for Jean Ray / TimeCube. Jean Ray is sole authority on harmonic TimeCube. Collection of raw data on this site will empower the greatest book ever written. That includes Bibles and academic scientific books. Stop evil ad hominemism. But the attention that Jean Ray desired was beginning to peter out. Shortly after the death of Yancharski, he began complaining about financial issues, stating that unless he received donations, he may have to shut down. His ramblings also became more and more violent and frenzied. In one update, he wrote, "Americans are dumb, educated, one stupid, and they worship oneism evil. It is not immoral to kill believers.
Oh no.
Stupid bastards evolve from son or daughter who precedes them." He
Oh, that
also
sucks.
created a Twitter account using the handle Wisest Human, where he made short, angry
well, Percival
posts
and I,
such as,
found
killed my
one
little
and
brother.
got this
Queer
one.
God induces
I'll
AIDS.
continue
His
exploring,
profile
finding
would
some
only
cool
see
little
use for 6
places.
months after having posted 30 tweets.
Yeah.
Years ticked
I'll
by,
probably
and
run
Ray
across
continued
those
his
areas
rambling
again
posts,
eventually.
but they
Oh,
were
yeah,
growing
they weren't
more and more
too terribly far from,
One post reads in part,
their
Naval
one
connects
teleport.
4 corner 4s. God is born of a mother. She left Belly B signature. Every priest has Ma sign but lies to honor queers. Belly B proves 4 corners. By this point, Ray had entered
Belly
his
B.
80s and his mental state was degrading. In May of 2012, Ray made his final update to the site, again proclaiming the conspiracy of standardized time. He would linger for another 3 years, keeping the site going, but inevitably, on March 18, 2015, he died at the age of 87. Later that year, the license on the domain ran out. The site's demise was covered by online publications, including The
Good luck.
Verge and Gizmodo, but soon after, the site was brought back up by someone posing as Jean Ray. In early 2017, however, it ran out again, and now the page only displays a blank space. With both advocates for the Time Cube having passed away, the site only survives on the Wayback Machine and as
I am
jokes
back
online.
with my kitties.
Otis Eugene Ray
Right,
now serves
titties
as a
and
relic of the
kitties.
past era, but also as an omen for the way that the internet would soon target people with mental illnesses and eccentric personalities for the sake of humor. He
Oh,
acts as a
nice little
symbol of
oasis.
some of the powers, opportunities, and dangers of the information age, where the newest celebrities can come from the most unexpected places.
Wait a minute.
Truly, it is a cautionary tale.
So yeah, people are interesting.
Dude was just insane. Also, Temple OS definitely not a Twitch-friendly episode.
Oh, come on.
They don't. They're a little liberal with the N word. I'm just saying. Very, very liberal. Ugh.
I heard this. Interesting. Help. Hurt heads.
What?
Oh. D&D tonight, boys. I'm
Ooh,
about
congratulations.
I'm about to ruin a priest or priestess. I don't know yet, but I'm planning
Of the strange
to corrupt
research
this
to come out
priest.
of mid-1900s
Gonna
America,
show her your
there is little of
slong
the
and
legacy
ruin
as
all of
enduring
System's
or
plots.
as terrifying as the Mouse
this is a
Utopia
systems game.
experiments. Taking
This
place
is
throughout the
not the Friends
50s
game.
Oh,
and
okay.
early 70s, the
But no
current
slong.
state of the subjects was published in
course
the
there's
National
slong. Tyrone
Magazine
is in the
Scientific
game.
American,
true.
and the experiments
That's
themselves
right, he was
were
allowed
run
to
in
show his
an
weapon. That's
apocalyptic
right.
importance. In a
I
post-war
forgot
United
about that.
States,
I
the
really
movement
need to get off my
to
lazy
describe the
ass and get that
results, such as
campaign up
behavior
again.
sync became synonymous with
I
fears
do.
of an overpopulated world and violent, deviant
Then I'd have to
behavior in
plot an
cities.
adult.
Today, they are preserved within fiction, such as Channel 4's conspiracy thriller Utopia and the classic animated movie The Secret of Nim.
Wait, what?
Wait, is this the furries
So what
one?
were the Mouse
something
Utopia
about mice?
experiments?
Oh, the Mouse Project. Oh shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one's interesting.
Oh, hey, Corner Club. We're listening to weird things.
Shortly after World War II,
Down
a
the
group
rabbit
known
hole.
collectively as the environmentalists were making a large push to prevent environmental degradation, as well as overexploitation of the planet's renewable resources. Among these people were a group specifically known as the Neo-Malthusians, a term referring to the 18th and 19th century English scholar Thomas Robert Malthus. Malthus proposed that while the world's population may increase exponentially, food production can only increase linearly, leading to an eventual
We're
subsistence
just
level existence
listening
for the
to
human
Down the
race
Rabbit Hole.
that became known as a Malthusian catastrophe.
Madness.
While advancements such as the Green Revolution saw that this didn't come
Madness.
about, the Neo-Malthusians
This
acknowledged his concerns about
Oh.
overpopulation and feared that this pattern would result in the collapse of civilization or, at best, have extreme adverse effects. These fears were given a platform in writing of the time, especially in works such as William Folk's Road to Survival in
Aw, how'd you
1948,
fall out?
and perhaps
Oh,
most
you're at the
famously,
end, aren't you?
Silent Spring by
Yeah.
Rachel Carson in
I
1962.
misplaced a block.
Before the movement's
Oops.
explosion of popularity popularity in the 50s and 60s, however,
See,
researchers
my
had
brain
already
brain
begun
got rid
work
of the T
investigating
again,
the
but this
effects of
time I know
population
for
growth,
a
and
fact
among
that
them
he's not
was a
on the
man
server.
named John B. Calhoun. Born in 1917, Calhoun took an
Aurora.
early interest in science, specifically
I know
ornithology,
for a fact
publishing
he's not
his
on the
first
server.
paper on birds when he was 15. But over time,
I was
his
just saying
interest
that
would
my
change.
tired
By the
brain
time he
got rid of
received
the
his
T again. I was
PhD,
like,
his focus had turned
but
to
it
ethology, the
sounds like-
study of animal behavior. When his education was
impossible.
concluded, he moved with his family to Towson,
Oh.
Maryland, to
Oh,
begin research at
I'll
Johns
figure
Hopkins
it out
University
later.
in nearby Baltimore, but the research itself would be conducted much closer to home. In
Oh,
1937,
no.
shortly after he arrived, he approached his neighbor about using some of their neglected property for an experiment. The
Why you
scope would be
leave?
massive, and according to
Why are
Calhoun,
you
his neighbor
leaving
probably
us?
didn't expect such a
I'm
scale
not
when they
leaving,
agreed to let
y'all.
him use the
I'm
forested
sorry,
area.
chat.
Taking
I
over
just
a
wanna
quarter of an
play
acre,
freaking
Calhoun
game.
constructed a massive habitat, complete with food, water,
man.
animal shelter,
Never
and protection
you.
from predators. The only limiting condition
God
being
damn
the
it, now I have to
restriction
make a
the quarter
grave.
acre living space. He affectionately provided his
Make a
enclosure
spike
with
trade.
Rat
Where
City.
is your body then?
Unfortunately, no publicly
I didn't
available images
die.
of Rat City
Decimated.
exist. Calhoun
that's
was
where it
very
is.
familiar with Norway rats, having performed research on them for his doctorate, and he
Oh,
estimated
so
that Rat
these-
City could sustain
These
approximately
evil villager
5,000
dudes have pet
individuals, though if
turtles.
they reached this number, the population density
What?
would be tight. He began
Yeah,
by
hold on.
placing
I
5
found one of
pregnant
those
females
battle
in the
tower
enclosure,
things,
providing
dudes.
ample genetic
Oh,
diversity.
yeah.
And
So like
soon
they
the
specifically
population
have a
was
pond.
increasing
There's
exponentially.
2 turtle or a
Then
couple
something
turtles in it. They even
surprising
have like a little fenced
Rather
in
than the
area and stairs to
population
get out of the
increasing to fill the
pond.
space
And...
of the
I thought you were just
Yeah.
I thought you were just mistaking the Ravager, so it's like no.
He also
No,
noticed
no.
behavioral
I mean-
peculiarities. Despite the large size
Yeah,
of Rat
that is
City,
what they are.
the residents seemed
Wait,
to
I
give you
concentrate
night
in
vision.
a few places, forming
Yeah.
social groups of 12 and
The dudes
limiting
with
themselves to
crossbows.
specific feeding locations.
Just tease
Yeah,
me,
kill
even
them.
though I
The
technically don't
experiment after
exist.
2 years and 4 months,
knows
during which the
something's up.
population never grew over 200. Careful
like,
observation
oh, shit,
revealed the
I don't even
cause:
see what
high
I go to.
infant mortality. For some reason, as the experiment progressed and the population increased, the mothers were not caring for their young properly, leading to most of them dying before reaching maturity. Calhoun had his theories as to why this was, but to prove them, he would need more data. In
I'm
1954,
throwing random
about 5
items
years
and
after
chests
his
I come
initial
across.
experiment concluded, he was hired by the National Institute of Mental Health, often
I
shortened
kind of wanted to
to
see the
NIM.
pet turtles.
Within the laboratory
Oh,
of psychology,
sure.
Calhoun
Do you want me
was
to teleport
given
you?
ample resources
Yeah.
to continue his work.
Alright, give me a
With the
moment.
team, he began feverishly designing and constructing
I
habitats,
don't know how
sometimes
safe it would be
referred
for
to
you.
as universes, where he performed numerous smaller scale and
Villagers?
more
I mean, it's fine as long as
controlled
you have armor.
rat study on a domesticated
Well, there's a
variety
lot of
albino
them.
Norway rat. These rats would want for
I'm
nothing.
ready for
All
war.
physical needs for a healthy rat lifestyle would be provided for them.
Alright.
Food, water,
Put 'em in,
climate
coach.
control, and nesting material.
Put in the man!
Calhoun spent 8
Yes,
years
for this!
perfecting his enclosures and methods until finally, in
He
February of
consented.
1962, an article of his writing was published in the magazine Scientific American. The article was entitled Population Density and Social Pathology. His opening paragraph ominously reads so, quote, "In the celebrated thesis of Thomas Malthus, vice and misery impose the ultimate natural limit on the growth of populations.
Ow,
Students of the
ow,
subject
ow,
have given
ow,
most of their
ow.
attention to misery, that is, to predation, disease, and
My
food supply
God.
as forces that
Maybe.
operate to adjust the size of a population to its environment. Vice. Setting aside the moral burden of this word, what are the effects of the social behavior of a species on population growth, and of
Yeah.
population density on social behavior?"
You
Unquote.
got pet turtles.
To answer this question, he cited 6 of his experiments in particular, all with similar composition and concerningly similar results. The design of these habitats was simple. The layout was a rectangle measuring 10 feet by 14 feet, divided into 4 equal sections.
Those guys
by
are relatively
aluminum
minded in their own
fences.
business.
3 of
But
these
yeah.
fences sported bridges over which the rats
nice
could
little
climb,
area.
while one fence lacked such a bridge, essentially creating one long space that wrapped in on itself. Each
Like, can I-
section was
can I
equipped
kill them?
similarly with a food hopper, water, and
I kinda wanna
nesting
take
areas
this place.
accessible by spiral staircases.
I don't know
But
if you can
Calhoun,
really claim one of the
leveraging his experience
pillar,
with the
can you?
rats, made special changes.
I
to
mean, you
encourage
can. It's just
specific
pillagers
behaviors.
will spawn
He
around you
enticed the
regardless.
rats to use one of the center pens by making
Always?
the spiral staircase
Yeah.
to that pen's living spaces
Ah.
Because that
shorter
turns
than
into
the
a spawn
others. He
location.
admits this was a comparatively small factor, but the more insidious
Same thing with a
change
mansion.
was to
You
their
can't
food
exactly build
supply.
a mansion.
In half
You
of these
constantly
So
get
nothing I
villagers.
do, they will
Calhoun
always
supplied
just keep
powdered
spawning.
food,
Indicators.
but in the other half, he
Yeah.
placed feeders of his own design, consisting of hard
Isn't there like a
pellets behind a
spawner
wire
that
mesh.
they summon from?
Half of his experiments
Oh,
began with 32
spawn
mice,
zone.
the other half with 56, of evenly male and female composition, and all having just reached maturity. Calhoun
You can make
estimated
a
that approximately
pillager
40 rats
farm,
could
though.
comfortably be housed in these enclosures, but he would allow these populations to increase to 80 before he would cull them. Almost immediately after introduction, things began to go awry. The females, unsurprisingly, spread themselves out somewhat evenly through the pens, but after the males jockeyed for dominance and those of highest rank were determined, they began to distribute themselves strangely. Less dominant male rats will typically awaken
shut
earlier
the
and
door.
begin to wander and forage for food, and due to the design of the pen,
How do you
this
make a
meant that
golem?
they usually would end up in the center sections
Uh,
to eat.
iron
During
is
this
tea
time,
and then a
the
pumpkin at
dominant
the top.
males of the
Carved
outer
pumpkin.
pens would wake up and begin guarding their respective territories. Since there was only one entrance ramp to
Must
either
be doing
end,
it wrong.
the dominant males of either
Iron
pen would
blocks or
bar the
ingots?
return of the less
Iron
dominant
blocks.
males, forcing the male population to
And then a
clump in
carved
the center
pumpkin at the
pens,
top.
Yeah.
while the dominant
Oh,
end
no,
males
I
protected
have
what
a-
came to be their
Regular
harems.
pumpkin?
Only
No,
a
I
few
have a
other
jack-o'-lantern.
deferential males were allowed to remain.
Oh, yeah, no.
These few
no, no,
remaining
Jack.
males began exhibiting
Jackets.
odd
Like-
behavior, though they would spend most of their time in the burrows
still
of the
didn't work.
females, hiding away from the dominant male. They would never
Weird.
attempt to mate with any
Carved.
of them. Instead, perplexingly, they would try to mate with the dominant male, and even more perplexing, the dominant male would not fight these attempts. At the same time as this was happening, the effect of Calhoun's
haven't died
special
yet, I think
feeders
this
was
team's
taking
pissed
hold.
about it.
Since procuring food was such a lengthy
Sorry.
process at the hard food feeders, it was common for one rat to join another while in
You
the
just gotta
process
work
of
harder.
feeding. By this method, the rats slowly became conditioned to eating in the company of other rats until, eventually, the rats would refuse to eat unless another rat was present. Since more rats tended to be in the center pens, this behavior meant that, over time, more and more rats made their way there, further condensing them. This heightened the
I rezzed
proximity
him
of an
and he
already
literally
cramped
just fell in the
population.
hole
In the
by
experiments with the
himself,
powder
no help.
this effect was far less pronounced. With these factors combined,
Fine, I
Calhoun
can take my
noted what
time
he
and
called a behavioral
get some
sink,
health
or an increase in pathological activity in the rats due to the stress involved in such high population density. For the females, the behavioral sink manifested in reduced capacity for nest building and young rearing. Infant rats are extremely dependent upon their mothers for nearly all things. However,
I
under
hope
the
this
effects
helps.
of the behavioral sink, the mothers would often be interrupted in their nest building practices to engage in some other social activity. As time wore on, this led to sparser nests which could not house the young properly. If a mother decided to move her litter, she often
me.
would only move some of them or scatter them about the pen in separate
Ow, me.
locations. What's more, when female rats are ready to mate, the males can sense it, and the enclosed space meant that a female could not escape the continuous advances of the males during these periods. Even when they would enter their nests for a reprieve, they would be followed in and harrowed. These factors together resulted in an extremely high
Ma?
infant mortality rate, in one case
Ma?
reaching 96%. For the males,
Come here.
this manifested in different ways. The dominant males would occasionally lash out in violence against the other members of the pen, including infants, often biting and wounding their tails. Among the lower class males were three groups. The first he described as the homosexuals, which he immediately corrects as pansexuals, who would not compete for status but would often attempt to mate with any other rat, regardless of gender or age. Much like in the end pens, these advances went unchallenged. The second group he described as somnambulists, who moved slowly through the pen without interacting with other individuals in any fashion, and the other rats, in turn, ignored them, except in rare circumstances. These rats, externally, he described as fat, sleek, and healthy looking. But to him, the strangest group was the third, which he named the probers. These rats were hyperactive, hypersexual, and pansexual. Despite violence from the dominant males, they would viciously pursue females in heat, eschewing any sort of courtship ritual and following them into their burrows to mate.
So they were just
Later
rapey.
on in the experiments, they would often find the corpses of the improperly cared for young, which they would cannibalize. In time, one of Calhoun's assistants would publicly describe these pens as hell.
So yeah, Sniper, I think this should be enough to kind of protect your area.
Have eventually led to the deaths of the colonists. At their conclusion, he would take the 4 healthiest males and females and allow them to breed, but their behavior had been so inexorably altered that none of their pups survived beyond weaning.
So give me a second.
They just keep spawning no matter what.
Oh yeah. Oh hey look, there's a bunch of black men.
This short article enraptured its US audience, and the effects on both the scientific world and popular culture.
Well, let me know if you want me to...
People began to relate Calhoun's rat experiments to modern city life, and in an era where fear of social deviance was reaching an
First of all, are you
extreme
still
high,
in,
it
like,
was
kind of the
largely
spawn
seen as a
area?
reflection of the current time and where society could be heading.
So you could probably take Sniper back to the teleporter more easily.
Allegorical design of his test environment, made to look like a city. Population density quickly became a common topic. Psychologist Carl Rogers, in his work Some Social Issues Which Concern Me, stated that, quote, the resemblance to human
I went
behavior
to bed.
is
Why?
frightening. In humans,
'Cause I have it.
or family relationships, the lack of caring, the complete alienation, the magnetic attraction of overcrowding, the lack of involvement which is so great that it permits people to watch a long, drawn-out murder without so much as calling the police. Perhaps all city dwellers are inhabitants of a behavioral sink. Unquote. Soon after, studies of dense urban environments were conducted
try to
see if
protect you.
these effects translated directly to humans, but
But yeah,
what they
let us
found
know when
was
you want to go back to the
intrusive
spawn.
and unsatisfying. Despite the suggestions of Calhoun's rats, humans in cities reacted differently or sometimes
gonna watch all
the
these
opposite the
monsters
manner
kill
that
this
researchers
golem.
expected, depending on the location. No matter how they tried,
Lone
no evidence
golem.
of a widespread behavioral sink could be found in
Bad,
urban
broken, and
areas.
dying.
But
Oh,
this
there
did
he
not
goes.
dissuade Calhoun. Even as others
Bye.
explored the problem of overcrowding, Calhoun frantically continued his research. Now a celebrated success and emboldened by the public acceptance of his ideas, he resumed his work at NIM on an even larger scale, though again away from the public eye. He spent his time on new subjects as he continued to perfect his enclosures and experiments until finally, after 11 years, Calhoun revealed his magnum opus through an article he entitled Death Squared, which was published in the journal Proceedings of the Royal Society of Medicine in January
that's a
of
mountain.
1973. The lengthy opening to this article was undeniably apocalyptic. Calhoun wrote, I shall largely speak of mice, but my thoughts are on man, on healing, on life and its evolution. Threatening life and evolution are the two deaths, death of the spirit and death of the body. Evolution, in terms of ancient wisdom, is the acquisition of access to the tree of life. Unquote. He goes on to heavily reference Revelations and of the riders of the apocalypse, using them to proclaim that the Hippocratic Oath applies not only to the body, but to the spirit. After this dramatic introduction, he described his test. For the most part, these new experiments were similar to his 1963 trials, including unlimited access to food and water, protection from the elements and predators, and safeguards against disease. Many parts, however, were drastically altered. As Calhoun mentions in his introduction, the Norway rats used in his first publicized experiments were replaced with albino house mice, which were taken from a breeding group from the National Institutes of Health made specifically to prevent communicable disease. To fit his new subjects, Calhoun had designed an entirely new enclosure. This version was much more vertical, with 16 wall-mounted housing areas for the rats at the tops of long metal tubes, which Calhoun called walk-up apartments. At the bottom of each apartment was a virtually unlimited supply of food, water, and nesting material. With the space provided, Calhoun estimated that it could potentially hold 3,840 mice. He named this enclosure Universe 25. Calhoun's methods also had changed. Rather than instituting population controls, he would interfere
with
far
Redstone?
less. His plan was to place
I'm
8
playing
mice in
with
the enclosure,
shaders.
4 male and 4 female, and simply watch and wait. Calhoun observed 4 distinct
I need to
phases
find
in
one
the
that
ensuing
makes more
experiment.
dumb for me.
Phase A was predictable, constituting the time period before the
They
first
only
new
showed
mice
that
were
works
born,
for
which ended up being
1.15.
104 days. For the
Makes
mice,
things more
these days were, quote, marked by considerable social turmoil. After the social order was established and the first brood was born, the population began Phase B, which Calhoun named the exploitation phase. During this time, the mice doubled in number every 55 days as new young grew to maturity and had their own young. This doubling continued until day 315, after which the doubling rate slowed to a rate of 145 days, nearly 3 times as long. By this point, the different broods had clumped into one side of the pen, exhibiting the same sort of clumping as the Norway rats, but this time without any coaxing from Calhoun's designs. This change in the rate of procreation marked Phase C, which Calhoun labeled as the stagnation phase. This is when the most notable events occurred, and they eerily mirrored Calhoun's rat experiments. In a natural setting, those mice which find no social niche will leave the colony, but in this experiment, emigration was impossible, and so those forced to remain withdrew from society. These dejected males formed a large pool in the center of the enclosure. They quickly became characterized by both their inactivity and their many scars and wounds. Occasionally, they would grow agitated and attack one another, and with nowhere to retreat, the recipient of these attacks would simply lay still and endure the assault. The outcast females, rather than joining them, would retreat to the highest apartments and live quietly among one another. It was during this time that the behavioral sink manifested, with mice gathering around specific food hoppers in large numbers, while others remained almost entirely untouched, showing how, again, the need for social interaction had become so intertwined with the need for food that the former had overtaken the latter. The males who had won the initial fights also were placed under extreme stress. As more and more mice reached maturity from within,
It's nice to see you,
and
dear.
without,
Congratulations
the
for
social
being
groups
legal.
Continually had to patrol and defend their territory. Eventually, they
You're just listening to some weird stuff.
Could not defend the females within their group. These females were therefore forced to defend the nest themselves, even when nursing their young, leading to generalized aggressive behavior. This aggression would inevitably be
This guy really liked his rats, didn't he?
Would be wounded by their mothers and forced to leave the nest before they were finished.
It's an interesting concept,
Much like
though.
the rats, the mother mice would
really
also forget
su-
some
the
of their
research
young
is
and move
interesting.
from one nest
It's just the
to
person.
another.
The person's gonna be
Due to
crazy.
the added stress of defending their territory, sometimes the mothers would reabsorb unborn mice in the womb, further reducing the fertility rates. Calhoun writes, "For all practical purposes, there had been a death of societal organization by the end of Phase C. Finally, there was Phase D, which Calhoun entitled the Death Phase. This phase was characterized largely by an entire generation of young who had been rejected by their mothers early and forced to leave the nest, and they were therefore unable to exhibit normal social behavior. This manifested in numerous ways. The females of this generation had far fewer children, and those that did have children lacked the maternal instincts necessary to raise them beyond weaning." Calhoun goes on to describe the males of this generation. Quote, "Male counterparts to these non-reproducing females were soon dubbed the beautiful ones. They never engaged in sexual approaches toward females, and they never engaged in fighting, and so they had no wound or scar tissue. Thus, their pelage remained in excellent condition. Their behavioral repertoire became largely confined to eating, drinking, sleeping, and grooming, none of which carried any social implications beyond that represented by contiguity of bodies." Unquote. As the last mice with reproductive instincts aged beyond their fertility, Calhoun declared that the last male would die around day 1780 of the experiment, effectively rendering the colony dead, as it would be unable to produce any more young. His present tense language implied that, when the article was published, the colony was still technically alive, though its final fate was practically sealed. Calhoun closed his article with a call to action. "For an animal so complex as man, there is no logical reason why a comparable sequence of events should not also lead to species extinction. If opportunities for role fulfillment fall far short of the demand by those capable of filling roles and having expectancies to do so, only violence and disruption of social organization can follow. Individuals born under these circumstances will be so out of touch with reality as to be incapable even of alienation. Their most complex behaviors will become fragmented. Acquisition, creation, and utilization of ideas appropriate for life in a post-industrial, cultural, conceptual, technological society will have been blocked. Just as biological generativity in the mouse involves this species' most complex behaviors, so does ideational generativity for man. Loss of these respective complex behaviors means death of the species.
Huh. But no, Nation, I've done actually a ton of building. I'm currently more or less just like exploring the map to find like cool building areas for like new victims if people join.
Specific locations of overcrowding rather than the generalized
or you know people who are already here.
The effects on students in
more or less just loading in the map.
Hospitals, but the most fruitful example they discovered was in prisons. Paul Paulus from the University of Texas wrote that prisons were the perfect place for this sort of study, describing the social interaction between inmates as intense, prolonged, inescapable, and realistic. The prison in the study also offered the closest analog to Calhoun's rat experiments, since the prisoners could not escape the company of others, even in their communal cells. There, they found connections between over-socialization and suicide, violence, psychopathy, and stress. After such studies, environmental psychologists began to discover the problem. They identified two different kinds of density: physical density and social density. Physical density was the amount of space per person, while social density was the number of individuals occupying a space. They found that social density was the much more important factor, as individuals in high social density were unable to control their interactions with others. Based on this research, human environments could be designed to at least partially mitigate these issues, allowing those living within them the privacy they needed to maintain healthy social interaction. Outside of scientific discourse, Calhoun's rhetoric has maintained its strength through the years, with different groups of all political persuasions bending his results to support their views on social degradation, however they may define it. Among more scholarly sources, Calhoun has been both lauded
we don't
and
have any
criticized
tanks,
for his
so
work.
that just basically
Those who
means
support him cite his forward thinking about overpopulation, while those who
pull out your
deride him
pistol and
cite
shoot
his
things.
misrepresentation of the actual social problems within cities, guiding discourse away from the true causes of societal discord. But no matter what those in the modern day think of his research, his influence on the way America views its cities is undeniable.
I guess that makes sense.
But they have two Reinhardts.
Boy just really wanted to fucking prove that it's apocalyptic, that overpopulation would be a thing, but really it's not. Dude's insane. Though the research was interesting, though. It's just, spoiler, humans are a little more complicated than rats. Surprised by nobody.
Ah, true. Oh, I can do that?
Ooh, why am I getting bold, Mr. Heroes? No, sweetheart.
Like, even right now, currently, nowadays, most millennials, like, kind of refuse to have kids in general. It's like, maybe one at most.
I only want one because of my body.
No babies for me. I've already flushed 2. Oh, thank you. Good.
Well, a lot of scientists are saying, like, most likely the next generation, Gen Z, will probably be the same, if not, like, even lesser.
Echo.
Yes.
Stop.
No, my kids actually have to have a child.
No.
They want to keep this house. That's been in our generation since the beginning, basically.
Just a
The beginning being like my great grandfather. So like, yeah.
Old rabbit. Oh well.
So you have to have kids?
I have to have kids, yeah. I have to have kids or we lose this house because I'm an only child.
Wait.
I mean, I have half siblings, but they're not in my mother's family, so.
You can adopt.
Yeah, I was gonna say just adopt.
It can't
and
be
give them the
adopted.
family.
It can't be adopted or step. It
Why?
has to be blood. That's
Wait,
how
it's a
my
monarchy?
I was
My
gonna say, is it a
my
shitty like family rule?
great-grandmother,
Or...
my great-grandmother, and my great-great-grandfather, and my great-grandfather. That's how they wanted it.
Well, guess
So-
what? They're not there!
I don't feel like they're ghosts killing me, thanks.
Unfortunately, the
generation
fun
of-
thing is they can't.
Call the Ghostbusters. Fuck them.
The lost
gotta call-
generation.
You
had
could always
fucking-
write in your will.
I could, but I
Well,
would
they-
only do it for adopt, not step. Because
Of the
step
early
wouldn't
internet
understand.
stories, there are few
Adopted,
as infamous
maybe.
as the final
Who
fate of
knows?
this house. Though
Wouldn't
the
understand
details are unclear
fully.
to most who remember it, its reputation is still sometimes invoked on forums in reference to terrible housemates or the eccentric potential from online communities.
Oh, this one, I
especially
just
fandoms.
listened
Yeah.
to it.
Oh, did
It was
you?
one of the main channels
Yeah,
through which
it's
internet
good, though.
users were
It is good.
introduced to the otherkin phenomenon.
Because the owner
So
of
what
the house
was
as
the
well
Final
overrides
Fantasy
any
house?
previous will.
Yeah, I understand this, but it was a trust.
It's the tradition thing. that
On
takes
April
place.
18th,
Yeah.
2005, a live
Fuck
channel
tradition.
user under the
Oh,
handle
God.
Genki Crowd
Actually, you want to
made
hear?
long
There's a funny
videos
story. My husband's
detailing
company
an
is
experience with
Japanese.
specific fans of
And
Final
they
Fantasy
are,
VII,
there's
popular
a
and
cable company
influential
right next to them.
story-driven
They
game
wanted to
from
buy the
Japan.
cable
He
company.
introduced it by writing,
Well, the
"These
cable
people
company,
are dangerous.
original
This is not
creator
a
or
joke.
owner of the
This
building,
is my experience
put
with
it as a clause in the
began by
contract that it
explaining his
cannot be
place
sold to
within
any
the fandom.
dirty
Quote,
Japs.
Most people watching the journal now probably don't know this.
So
Back in the
technically,
day,
that
I
building
ran a
is not
pretty
allowed to
popular
be sold
website
to
devoted
Japanese
the
people.
characters Cloud and the very
that are
minor
dirty.
Does the
character
thing
Zack
literally
from
say
Final
dirty
Fantasy
Japs?
VII.
More or
It was
less,
really the
just
only
Japanese.
comprehensive one
Oh
out
my
throughout,
God.
which was why it got such notice.
Because if
I
it
was
just
used
said
to
dirty
receiving
Japs,
fan
all I
mail
do
or
is just
other
have them
people's
take a
fan
shower.
art, which I
Boom,
put up
problem
on the
solved.
website.
True.
Quote. At the
Yeah,
time
they're
of his
clean
alleged
Japanese.
Be like,
experience,
hey,
he
do you guys have a
explained he was a
shower
college
and
freshman
shop?
and a heavy
Yeah,
drinker.
just take a shower,
In
take a pic,
2002, he
boom.
was contacted by a
Just
person calling
piss 'em
herself
all off and be
Hojo,
like,
referencing the
well,
mascot
you know what,
of
this
the
guy's
Zelda
actually
game,
Korean,
and the two
so
began
he's
conversing
not
with each other
Japanese.
occasionally over AOL Instant
Fucking
Messenger.
Jews.
Hojo had her own
Bamboozled,
fan site dedicated
110%.
to her namesake, and following the same
Never saw
pattern,
it coming.
she began calling
But yeah,
Zack.
so my husband has met the guy.
At the time,
He's
he
come,
thought nothing of
he's
this.
done tours throughout the
Sometime
building.
after,
He has a
was
butler
introduced
with
to
one glove
Hojo's
on that
wife,
he would
who
ash his
went by
cigars
Genova
into,
or
and he
Jen
would have
after
a
an ancient
geisha
evil and
or a
alien
lady
creature from
walk
the
with
game.
him.
The writer describes their
And then
first
they'd all just
interaction
park their
as
cars on the
Cigar.
lawn
Then came
and
a
get
girl
drunk in the
bombshell.
house
I
and
was asked
read their
if I had
smut.
any memories of past lives. I do believe
Sounds
in
like a
past
good life.
lives. I think it's a pretty valid cycle
fucking
given
yeah,
how
my
many
name book is
cultures
right.
believe in
Oh,
it.
yeah.
That's
So
what
I
I need.
told her no, I didn't.
But yeah,
I
yeah,
believe in it.
the red
Should
experiment
never,
thing is
ever
definitely a
have
thing
said
that will
It's like
happen
inviting the
eventually.
vampire
It will.
into my house. Jen's attack was swift and sure.
I
She
already told
began
my
in
mom
the
that I'm
population
going
thing?
to
to me
be
how there are
changing it
alternate
to
universes. Do you
adopted
grant me
kids
that?
again.
Sure, there could be.
Oh, I
In
have
those
to have kids,
universes,
damn it.
Maybe, just maybe, video games.
It's your
actually
body,
have
you're not a
Children-
fucking
But
walking
it could be
incubator.
plausible, 'cause I like imagining anything's
Children are an
possible.
option.
Through all of this
Unless
and all
that's
this
your
flurry,
kink.
she tells
Other
me
than
that
that,
she thinks
fuck
in a
'em.
past life.
Actually, my
I was
grandmother
Zack from
considered that
Final
growing up.
Fantasy VII. Think about it, she said. You're both
She
grown.
considered being
You
a
both have
surrogate
that
mother.
instinct of dragging off friends who
Uh,
could be left
I
behind.
would
You
be
take a
down if
bullet
my
for
body
someone,
wasn't
right?
so
You say you
terrible.
don't believe in
Well,
magic or any
yeah,
of
well,
that,
she got
and
the
you
lucky
wanted to
thing
be a
is like her
mercenary.
nail. She
For all
said
of
she
his
just
5 or 6 lives,
she
you have a
felt
similar
amazing
pattern.
being pregnant. Her
Really,
hair
you
was
feel
great.
like
Her
you
nails
just
felt
fucked
great.
him
Her
up, and you hate
physical
it.
body
Battle
was
your
great.
brain
No
with a fresh
morning
and idiocy and
sickness.
vodka, and this will
She got
suddenly make
titties?
sense.
Uh-huh.
Sure, maybe I'm
Makes
not
me
in now,
stronger.
I said, but it was
Yeah,
possible.
yep. She was more than willing, but her husband at the time said no.
State College, Pennsylvania, that winter to stay at their apartment a week before
Again,
Christmas.
your
He
body,
was met at
your
the bus
choice.
stop by
Exactly.
Hojo wearing a lab coat, who escorted him back to
If
where
you
they
want to
were
do
living.
something
Quote,
for
"When we
someone
arrived at
less
the apartment,
fortunate
Jen,
than
who
you,
insisted I call
like
her Genova
some
and would
people
often
want
refer
kids,
to
but they're just
herself
not
as
able to
Jenny
conceive.
Nova,
Oh,
came
yeah.
storming up to Hojo
So I
and
found that some of
screaming
those
in
people
Hojo's
probably
face.
still
I
shouldn't
have
have
no
kids.
idea what it was about.
It,
He
like
was
my
wearing a
sister.
purple skirt pulled up around her breasts. It looked like she had just got out of
you
bed.
punched
and I
the
was,
portal
to say at
frame.
the very least, intimidated.
All right.
About 3
can I
seconds
have
later,
that
she
Didn't
whirled
exactly
around in a
tell
quick
me what to
change.
do.
Suddenly, the nicest person ever.
What's up,
Sister Mary was
Sniper?
mad about was out the window.
Can I have that TP
About this
home?
time, I started to
Percival,
realize,
are you still
though,
kind of
Jen
by spawn?
wasn't role-playing when she talked about her children and other selves. Jen is what the internet calls a soul bonder, or in other words,
Hi,
batshit
What's
lunatic.
up, bitches?
Which means she has a lot of people living in her head talking, and when she wants to take on a
Oh,
personality
I know why
Crazy
it
boy.
didn't
situation
work.
for her personal gain, she acts one out.
What
I.e.,
happened?
If
It
she
is-
wanted to get
it is
sympathy,
time
she
for
would
D&D.
raise the pitch of her
Oh.
voice and pretend
So-
to be
oh,
an innocent
shit.
child.
Have a good one.
Unquote.
I was
Despite
like,
these
Bye.
differences, the writer's
May you
visual
roll
art
high.
style was positive, and he would frequently return
I
for
need a
visits,
safe
each
space to
time
hide in.
paying
Fuck.
$300
Alright.
for a
Bed,
bus
bed the priest.
Every
Bed
visit
the
was
priest.
You have high hopes and low
many of them
rolls.
soul
I mean,
wanders themselves.
shit.
Jen would frequently ask for money
I
to
gotta
buy
get my
food,
I gotta
and the
get my
writer would
lines
relent,
prepared.
feeling a sense of obligation.
Like
She would
my
also
favorite
attempt
one
to
so
help the
far is
writer and
like,
others
damn
grow
girl,
more
what's your
attached to
AC?
whatever
Because I need to
Final
hit
Fantasy
that.
character she had assigned to them. This was achieved.
Hey,
by
baby,
various
do you
means,
need some
including
lay on
battles
hands?
and a fantastic life regression.
It's like,
Nice.
I might not be
Laying on the floor and
barbarian,
listening to
but
music
I'm
from
down
the
to get
game.
reckless
In one
tonight.
instance, on a trip to the college, she
Nice
and
pants.
Kojo
What's the
locked
drop
the writer
rate?
in a soundproof room past the point of panic to help him, quote,
Not
remember
many of
being
these.
Zach. Another time,
I
when
think one of
meeting
my other
someone
favorite
so
ones is,
bonded
hey
with the
baby, do you
character
like
Eris,
sales? Because I
Jen
bet I could
attempted
get
to
those
coax
pants
them into
100%
sleeping
off.
together. To this end, she announced that she was going to lace their food with aphrodisiacs, but whether she
Yeah,
actually did so
Alright,
or
wish
not,
me
her
luck.
demands were
Wish
not
Tyrone
realized.
luck.
As strange as these instances were,
Good luck,
however,
Tyrone. May you
Tyrone and
stick your
to dissuade
dick
the
not
writer,
in a glory
Jen and
hole.
Hojo proposed
Which I don't think it'll
to
fit.
end with them.
Nah, he usually works on the other hand.
Oh, okay.
The
That's
writer
what I'll
moved
have
into
to build.
the
I'll have to
State
build
College of
Glory's
Portland in
holes
the
at
summer
some
of
point.
2003, with plans to only stay
Alright,
for a
heading out.
season.
Alright, bye, love.
He
Later,
found a
guys.
part-time job at a supermarket to help pay for food and rent, and he quit drinking as well. But his
Ooh.
experience quickly degraded.
Oh my
Quote,
god.
I can't even say what came first,
Pork.
chicken or egg, but let's just say that after 1 week, I was getting sick of it. I was the workhorse. I guess because I was Zack, I was therefore the manly man, as opposed to Jen the Cetra Queen or Hojo the frail scientist. Jen quit her babysitting job and refused to look for another one. I was the one who had to carry groceries to and from the house, the one who made the money to feed everyone, the one who had to fix or move furniture when it needed to be fixed or moved.
Bending
My
my
computer could
fucking
rarely get online
ears.
because Jen was on
But for
almost
some reason, I'm
24/7.
still
The rest of the
doing
time
it.
she would watch me as I typed, so I could never make a journal entry that read something along the lines of, Jen is abusing me, help me God, I'm tired and I want out of here. Unquote. Jen's pattern of surveillance worsened quickly. She would always be listening
Okay,
in
I'm
on
stealing the
calls, reading
boyfriends
his
now.
online interactions,
Bye,
and
guys.
demanding to know
Bye.
wherever he was going to keep track of him. She
Bye.
would frequently wake him up in the
Have
middle of the
fun.
night for
Cause the
Sunday
right kind of
mass
troubles.
prayers, depriving him of sleep. She demanded he spend his meager paycheck on $10 steaks for dinner, which made him
Jesus,
sick.
bye.
And when those would
What's-
only last one night, she and Hojo had him ask for unsold food at the supermarket. Nobody in the apartment would take out the garbage or clean besides the writer, who only washed the dishes, and so the stink festered in the apartment in the hot Pennsylvania summer. Jen only wore a single dress and refused to bathe, opting instead to use
So is this some
oil.
type of
The
thing
writer
within Final
described the smell
Fantasy?
of the apartment as rotting flesh
What?
and a miasma of filth with sparkle sunshine fairy artificial sugar scent sprayed over it. What's more, Jen and Hojo would beat each other loudly and with increasing
Oh, like-
frequency
oh,
behind
okay, I
their
see what you
bedroom
mean.
door as the
Uh,
summer
yeah,
continues, each time followed by noisy sex. This pattern of starvation, sleep deprivation, surveillance, and social isolation eroded the writer's will, and he began
People are
supporting them
insane.
blindly. For example, while the writer was staying there, Eris grew tired of Jen, and the two had a falling out. The writer described the aftermath. Quote, apparently Eris called one evening when Hojo and I were at the used bookstore, stealing books, yes, that poor, and said she wanted some of her things back that she had left at the apartment. Jen exploded. She called Hojo's cell phone in tears, screaming she was going to kill herself. I believed it. Hojo called Sid and demanded he go over. Hojo
Okay,
called
so this is a
Eris and
weird thing,
screamed
like,
at her.
within the
I told her
universe.
off, too. We rented a taxi with money we didn't have
Maybe?
and raced home. Jen, who had been
Would've found a
screaming
random pink
shit
sheep.
with her wrists, was sitting in the middle of the floor. Sid was draping damp cloths on her wrists. I woke up for a second and knew this was bullshit. I had a problem with self-injury, so I knew very well the sight of a deep cut and the sight of a light cut. I know well knife wounds. Jen had scratched herself, horizontally on the wrists. Maybe it had been with a safety pin or a butter knife. It was not any kind of suicide attempt. At the most, it
Don't
was
go
sting,
across the
but I
alley.
was still
Go
mad
down
at
the
Eris
street.
because I was supposed to be. I wrote her nasty emails. I joined them in bashing her. I ignored her when she came to pick up her stuff, even though she obviously wanted to still be friends with me. I regret that now because we never reconciled then. Maybe if I had got a
Yeah, I
clue and
know
tried to get out
pink
with her,
sheep and
things
brown
would have
sheeps
turned
are
out
rare.
different. Unquote. Soon he was left with no money to leave and no confidence to ask for help. Even when he attempted to talk to his father at a payphone, Jen would go hunting for him. Then, when the filth in the apartment grew unbearable, Jen and Hojo asked their landlord if they could move to a smaller, single-room apartment, further increasing their proximity. The writer was the one to move the boxes. Soon after the move, the supermarket cut the writer's job to 1 hour a week. But even so,
What the
Hojo
fuck?
took all of them out to buy new things for the apartment, implying that she had been hiding money away in order to make the writer pay for things. Here, as they did many other times, they fought publicly. However, there was one person from the circle of friends in town
Okay,
who had
Brown Rice
consistently
30%.
helped to stabilize the writer's mental state, a person who went by Sid, also a name from Final Fantasy, though the author describes him as having, quote, 1 foot in reality. He wrote, Sid occasionally would come over. When he did, I was glad because it was someone else. But he was and still does have his dickish moments. Jen would make these the be-all end-all, and Renee would back her up. I began to think he was like that all the time and didn't want to hang out with him when he was gone. Once he came back, they had to restart the process of brainwashing me all over again. Unquote. It was after one of these visits that the writer finally gathered the will to leave. Inspired after someone had stolen his shoes, he left everything behind in the apartment and walked the streets barefoot. By the end, he had spent a total of 2 months living with Jen and Hojo. After being homeless for a few days, Sid helped him gather his things and return to his mother's home in Brooklyn. Besides his own account, the writer spoke of a few others involved with Jen specifically. One account was about someone he referred to as Captain McCool, a sensitive person with whom they sought to fill the vacant spot that the writer had left. When they asked him to move in with them, he was too nervous to turn them down directly, and so he claimed that he had been assaulted to avoid it. When they discovered his lie, they, quote, had him stuck in a chair and forced him to watch while they raped each other. Another person, whom he referred to as
And raped a
Bean,
Will
would
in that
sell her
one?
blood to help fund Jen's lifestyle. At the time he was writing the LiveJournal post, she was still living with them, but stayed in the attic and was forced to remain as quiet as possible. The writer expected some people in the Final Fantasy community to see this, but he couldn't expect the sort of attention it would receive. Word spread quickly about the LiveJournal post, and many fans of Final Fantasy, as well as Soulbonders, commented that they had heard some details about Jen and the group in State College, but hadn't known the extent of their behavior. Others who already knew her found these claims unsurprising. Beyond the community, however, this story gained interest on forums, including 4chan, who treated it with disgust and fascination. It was soon adopted into general knowledge as a way to reference poor living conditions and soulbonding,
Good old
a
4chan.
subsection of a group known as Otherkin. It was here that the infamous story earned its generally recognized name and misnomer, the Final Fantasy VII House, or often just the Final Fantasy House. Though the rest of the internet would sometimes question its veracity, the writer's account seemed generally accepted within the Final Fantasy community. He began to receive testimony from other people affected by the group, many of them people he had met during his time at the apartment. To share their correspondences, he created a website where he cataloged the accounts of those who approached him alongside his own. Due to the limited archival information available, it's difficult to say the rate at which he updated the site with new accounts, but it appears he was receiving them as late as 2006, with each person represented by a pseudonym. Some of these accounts were from people mentioned in the original LiveJournal post, and they helped elucidate the practices of the group and enunciate Jen's and Hojo's behaviors. These accounts suggest an air of amateurishness yet charisma to everything Jen did. For example, one account from someone going by Zarla wrote, quote, there were also tarot card readings and such while we were there. Jen had the same tarot deck I had as a kid, the Tarot of the Cat People, and she told my fortune using the exact same method outlined in the little booklet that came with the cards. I can't remember anything really specific about the readings, except there was always mention of something coming after me or something, thus the coughing. If I remember right, later we were playing with a Ouija board and that something or someone was again trying to contact us.
On the Ouija board.
These accounts would also unanimously support the assertions about Jen from the original writer. One of the oddest entries, however, was an open letter prefaced by the LiveJournal writer. Quote, "The following was taken from the Wayback Machine. It is posted without consent of the original author, and I want to make that damn clear. She has nothing to do with it being here, so don't involve her. It is being backed up here due to the fact that it contains some current information that I felt should be edited out, like names or references to other people uninvolved. As far as I know, the original author is now happily farming turkeys in Idaho. Don't hassle her." This was written in 2003.
Shout out to
The
Turkey.
article itself is
Leave her alone in her
by
damn
another
turkeys.
active member of the soul bonding community, though clearly no longer associated with Jen, under the pseudonym Candy Wrapper. The introduction to the letter reads, "Genova, when I became your apprentice, you told me to shut up and not argue with you. Apparently, a sorceress is supposed to be a creature who blindly accepts the opinions of the authorities, even when she firmly believes that they are wrong. From this, I learned that when Jen says something I disagree with, I need to nod and make agreeing sounds anyway. Otherwise, we would have to fight every 2 minutes, and quite frankly, saying what I thought wasn't worth the hassle. I am not, however, your apprentice anymore, and I am free to say what I think. And I will, because it's a relief to say it, even if you aren't reading this. I do not actually give a crap whether you read it or not. It will hurt your feelings, and you will care that it happened, and I don't. You have been warned." The letter is structured as a list, and the first item reveals the name of Jen. "You do not look like any Final Fantasy characters. You look like Jennifer Cornett. End of story." She shared some of her thoughts on Hojo and her relationship with Jen. "If Renee does not go to class and do her homework, it will be difficult for her to pass those classes. Then she is no closer to graduating. Until she graduates, it will be hard for her to get a job that makes more money than she gets now. This is called capitalism, and it's a bitch. No one likes it, but no one has come up with anything that works any better. Renee always has to call off work or skip class to give you attention. She does this because she loves you. Love makes people do irrational and reckless things. This is one of them. That does not make it a good idea. You are wrecking Renee's life. It is wrong to do so, even if you have her permission." A few other choice lines read, "You have no money because you keep spending it on things you want. Anything you want is not automatically a magical item. There may be potential magic in everything, but then there's magic in things you don't bother to look at. Things you can have for free. If something is a magical item, that doesn't mean you must own it. It would be nice if you could, but you can't always do so. I had money because I rarely bought anything for myself. Whenever I got some money, I would save it. I am not a money generator, and neither are my parents. If you want to have money, you need to not spend it. I now do not have money because I spent it on you. Poof, all gone. You still wanted more, but I didn't have any more to give you. I have been using crystals since I was 10 years old. You are wrong when you start with that you won't use them properly shit, because I've been using crystals since elementary school. You taught me no magic. The only thing I actually learned from you was to beware of people like you. But among these accounts, there was one that stood out from the others, and if it's to be believed, it showed just how far the manipulation of Jen's entourage could go. In November of 2005, the LiveJournal writer entered email correspondence with a woman who went by Mela.
So my understanding is more or less the guy's writing in code in this,
and
you know,
rediscovered her online through
forms.
an open letter. Though the quote in the email isn't quite the same, it's
So this
highly
is the life
likely
of
that the
this
letter
guy
Mela
named
discovered
Zach.
was the list written by Candy Wrapper. Hoping to reconnect, Mela asked the author of the letter for Jen's information, and sometime after, she visited Jen's residence for 2 weeks. Here,
Really?
she claims Jen was able to convince her to spend $2,000 on various objects and food by asking only for small amounts at a time. Sometime afterward, likely in 2005, Mela made the decision to begin living with them. Quote, I moved in with $17,000 in my bank account, and soon Jen had drained all of that on necessities, all for the house, many of which went into Jen's room and never came out. Soon I received a check from the investment company for $80,000, and Jen's spending began again in earnest. I tried to get her to stop spending money on frivolous things, but every time I said no or told her she should spend her own money buying things for herself, she threw a fit. All this time, she was telling me how important I was to her special plan, how the world needed us to stick together so we could conquer evil, etc. I wanted desperately to feel special. I was scared and alone, and I believed her.
What?
I knew a few magic tricks.
Oh,
was
she's a
very
fucking
good at reading
cultist.
people, and could give relatively
It's
accurate
a
tarot
fucking
readings. I called
cult.
those lies hook, line, and sinker. unquote. After she moved in, it was
I may
clear
not
that
be a
Hojo's
cultist,
relationship with
but
Jen
I can see a
had
cult when I see a
deteriorated,
cult.
and she had been supplanted by a new person
just
named
saying.
Angel,
Yeah.
whom Mela
It's a
claimed was
goddamn
remarkably
cult.
violent.
That's a cult.
Jen was now sleeping exclusively with Angel, though sometimes Hojo would sleep with Angel as well. Hojo was forced to stay extremely silent during the day or risk being berated by Jen. This information strongly suggests that Hojo was the one who was selling blood to fund Jen. Their hygiene was also still abysmal. Quote, "Oh, how Jen smelled." Angel was much worse though. I don't think that girl ever bathed. They just kept adding perfume. And Jen's purple skirt/dress stinked to high heaven. That was until I made her other clothes to wear. Jen, during this time, was apparently made aware of the LiveJournal writer's website as well. At some point, it appears that they moved somewhere new, and it was here that she claimed she was beaten on multiple occasions. Once, during a dispute, one of them grabbed onto Mela's hair and started slamming her head into the floor, while Jen and Angel beat her with their fists, then sat on her and attempted to choke her. Finally, she passed out from the head trauma. Jen would later convince her that she had attacked Jen first, then blacked out. Eventually, Mela would tolerate no more, and she kicked them out. Much like their apartment, the house was left a mess, which Mela documented with photographs. They also had stolen numerous objects upon their departure, including board games, fabric, and a set of corsets, though her demand for back rent, quote,
those
in
things
excess
get
of
expensive,
10K
man.
is suspiciously inexact.
They really do.
While this
They
account is
are,
consistent
especially
with other
nice
reports of
ones.
The group's behavior, there was no method by which anyone could verify the veracity of any of them, instead leaving only the word of the writers. Alongside this, the author would finally reveal the faces of Jen and Hojo. In the frequently asked questions section, he wrote, "Is this photo Vincent/Jen/Hojo? 90% of the time, no. This was Jen in 1999. She got fatter and dirtier. This was Renee in 2000. She looks the same." In response to this attention, Jen and Hojo began to frantically delete most traces of themselves online, and even with their names publicly available, nobody could find them. After this, the attention on these stories began to wane. But only a few years after the accounts were posted, the Final Fantasy house would return in a way that nobody expected and, at first, seemed entirely unrelated. On July 15th, 2008,
It could be a cult about anything, huh?
Dragon Tiger Claw wrote a post entitled "Insane
gives me
Housemate
ideas.
Part
We can
1"
make a cult.
and published it on Housemate
We just
Horror,
need something
an open,
mildly
moderated
believable
page where
to
people
Fuda!
share their stories of bad roommates.
Come
The
on!
opening reads,
We already know
quote,
this shit.
"I used to live in an awesome situation in SoCal until
I mean,
the
you know,
housemate from
I'd
hell
join that cult.
moved in.
I-
Fortunately, she
We
had
could
left,
always do an
but
Alice in
bitterness
Wonderland
remains on
cult.
my
Those are
tongue.
always fun.
It is a
I
saga
mean,
that
I've
can
got
only
good
be
startings
told
for
in
it.
pieces. Please
If you want to be the brains, I can be the voice. I'll be Hitler for you.
She was a video game character. Unquote. Soon, the author
No,
would name
that's a
himself
proper
as
selling
Pete.
point, Horror.
The tale was structured in a regular.
But it's more or less
But I
it.
appreciate the
He
enthusiasm.
explained that he was living with
Yes,
five
sir!
other people in a story house. He claimed that the rent was a preposterously low $500 a month, and that the landlord
Burn the vanillas! Burn the
that
vanillas!
he wanted company in the house he had inherited. However, his standards
just
for
make
roommates
reverse
were high.
Nazism.
They all had to
They're
have
not
stable
of
income
color.
and employment and be at least
God.
25
God.
years old.
Jesus.
The woman who was chosen after their screening process was kept anonymous by Dragon.
I assume our
Tiger Claw,
judgments
given a
would be
placeholder
on
named
porn
Sarah,
types.
who moved in without much trouble. She claimed to be a 27-year-old computer programmer who already had a job in the area, but when she went
Condemned to
back work
Christians
after the
unless
move,
they're
she
like
returned
secret
saying she was laid
BDSMs.
off. When others offered to help her find new work, she consistently delayed
Oh,
accepting
shit.
it, which
Oh,
made
okay,
them
that-
suspicious. But much more
not
striking
bad.
was her
That's
connection
a nice
to a
chest.
particular game.
Translucent.
Quote, "In the 3 weeks that followed, Sarah was still unemployed. She spent all her time playing video games in the family room. She would play
I
the
wish I
same
could do that.
game over and over, some crappy-looking RPG from the 90s. It had an unpronounceable name, but Sarah said she was bonded to the game. She also told us that she changed her name to be that of one of the game characters. Upon further discussion, she explained that she believed she was the human incarnation of this character and that they shared a soul." Unquote.
Oh.
refused to reveal what character she
Oh.
was claiming to be.
Yeah. I have a
however,
house
since
in
it would
game
be
myself.
identifying
It's not a
information.
peen.
This game would, in the second update, be
Not a
revealed
peen.
to be the
No, it's not a
Japanese
peen. It's
RPG
definitely not a peen.
Suikoden, released in
I promise it's not a
1995.
peen.
Soon
It's a
afterwards,
rocket ship.
A friend of hers came to visit the house.
Pink rocket
She
ship.
also believed herself
of
bonded
not a
to a
peen.
Suikoden
Yeah,
character,
not a
specifically
peen.
Sasarai, but
Trademark.
since Pete could neither spell nor pronounce it, he simply
Also,
called
it doesn't
her
have a
Saki.
dungeon in it.
After spending a week together playing video games, they picketed a barbecue that the rest of the housemates were having. Though they had been given vegetarian options to join, they refused on moral grounds, denouncing them for eating meat. After they were
Aw.
aggressively told off, they were asked for a house meeting, which took place in March, to discuss whether or not Sarah would be allowed to stay. Sarah attempted to explain herself. Quote, Sarah lifted her head and started to talk. She started with, I am sorry, but you have to understand where I am coming from. She also said, lots of people can't understand me because I have such a high intellect, it is beyond their grasp. Excuse us for being sane. Unquote. They eventually learned that she had used friends' help to get past the selection process. She had never had a job in California, was from the East Coast, and used a friend's address to get a
Okay.
California driver's license.
You don't
while
understand my
another
intellect.
was her boss. Matt allowed her to stay until May 1st.
I couldn't take it. Sorry, I swallowed wrong.
Sarah, however, wasn't willing to leave
Again?
so easily.
I know, says no woman ever.
By this point, numerous readers were
Alright, you're
becoming
not
rabid.
thinking
They
cubically. We've been over this, man.
True. Damn it. I followed out of the cubic ways. Please, don't forsake me, God.
In response to the pressure from Matt and the rest of the house,
I'm far
Sarah
too
isolated
educated.
herself
Forgive
in her
me.
room, with Sasarai acting as a go-between. She would only leave it in Sasarai's company. However,
So
this
did we
didn't
scare
last
people
long,
away
as
with
Matt
our
was able
weird
to
shit
pull
we're
a favor
listening
from a
to?
psychologist friend to get her treatment for free, and he managed to convince
I mean,
Sarah to attend. Soon, she
it
was
just
on
weeds out the
medication
week, right?
and was
This is how
interacting
True.
with
starts.
others on a more normal
True.
basis. It was during this time that they discovered
I love
strong
listening to this type of
income.
weird shit,
Quote,
man.
she
It's
said,
fun.
"Plain as can
By the
be,
way, I
have
found a
people
birch
offer me
forest.
donations on my blog so I can spread the news of my religion.
Birch,
Her
please.
religion being that she is
I wasn't
actually
sure
a
if
male
you
video
had,
game character
use
from
for
a game that
birch.
came out in the 90s. What? So there are some morons
Huh?
out there who are giving money
Actually, I
to
don't think I
Sarah
have
so she
really
can
too much
pretend to be a
Okay.
video
Any
game
uses for
character
birch.
and teach others how to do the
But it's
same.
very nice to know,
Something
thank you.
said, we give her things because she has
Hello,
helped
Grey
us
Sheep.
find our true selves.
Hello, Grey Sheep.
So you don't work either, Tim asked. I could tell he was ready to explode. No, I get government
I can
benefits
tell.
in the UK.
Oh, shit.
Why? Because I don't like to work. Soon after this, Sarah's boyfriend convinced her to abandon her medication.
Don't like to
and the
work
results
for
were
him.
violent.
I don't wanna work.
One of the ruder housemates demanded she start taking the pills
I'd love
again.
to fall
She
into
began
that, but I
smashing
can't.
fragile objects,
I have
including a
morals.
window. She would continue to take her pills
Morality.
regularly, but by
Damn
now,
morals.
interaction
Or
between
2020
her and the
probably
rest of the
traveled like a
house
few
fell to a
thousand.
minimum. By the time May 1st,
Yeah, I've been
no sign of her
traveling
moving out,
very
and
far
Matt
away on
attempted to
Minecraft,
evict
just
her. Sarah called
wandering the
Department of Fair
server.
Employment and Housing, claiming discrimination against her religion.
I really am. That's all I'm
Disabilities.
doing. I'm just
While the
filling
state
random
didn't
chests
follow
I come
through on
across
these
with
threats,
blocks
they
of iron
discovered
and
that
just
Matt had
wandering
never
the
filed
server.
correct paperwork to house tenants, and Matt couldn't evict her until the
Again,
proper
I'm a hands-off
paperwork was
god.
filed. But the strangest event would happen that summer. In July, Sarah gathered 12 members of her soul bonding group at
Oh.
the house to perform a ritual,
Oh.
threatening Matt that she would file a discrimination suit against him if he wouldn't let them stay. Though Matt acquiesced, he only allowed them to stay until 10 o'clock that night. One roommate demanded that the soul bonders be ejected, but Matt wanted to gawk at their ritual, and so they stood in the kitchen and ate pizza while watching them. Pete describes the ritual. Quote, Sarah came downstairs, dressed in a white dress. She kept glancing at us. Something stood between her and us so she couldn't see us, I guess, and she began talking. She talked about how this was Betty's awakening and how Betty was now going to finally realize her potential by harnessing the soul of a video game character. I couldn't stand it. I started cracking up. The rest of the housemates started cracking up. This was better than any kind of TV you can imagine. See if you can picture all of these nutjobs kneeling around the altar as the video game played its music in the background. Sarah stood over them, preaching this religion, and the right bishop something would occasionally interject something deep from her position. Sarah was really getting upset, so more of her friends made the human wall. We could still hear all the stupid, even after they turned up the volume on that video game. At this point, Matt threatened to call the police since it was nearly 10 o'clock, but when one of the
No,
members
no,
of
you
Sarah's
don't call
group
the
threw a
police on that
punch,
shit. You let it
she
go.
carried out, and the group was
Don't call
forced from
police
the
on
premises.
cults.
No.
We've learned from this.
No. Exactly.
Cults will eat your liver if they get the chance.
After this point, other members of the house would share some of their experiences, but as they did, readers grew more suspicious. Before this, many people had been doubting the veracity of the claims made by Pete.
I'll be
When
right
the other
back.
housemates began to write in a similar fashion to him, it made them even more dubious. These disagreements eventually spiraled into arguments whose full scope was not archived before being deleted, but they were apparently severe enough for the moderator of Housemate Horror to write a post regarding them. Also in this post was a surprising and unexpected piece of information. Quote, Tim, Pete, and Carrie, aka the people posting from the account Dragon Tiger Claw about the Sarah saga, may be as they say they are, different housemates of Sarah, or they may be the one person doing a little creative writing experiment. Basically, I don't give a crap. The posts have been amusing and entertaining, and anyone who doesn't think so is not being forced to read them, so please do not complain. Farther down, the mod continues. It has been brought to my attention that a post was made by someone who was claiming to know Sarah, and that the posts made by DTC were false and harassing blah blah wah blah. This same person, Jay Eckhart, sent me an email before they made that post, requesting IP address information on the poster of the Sarah stories in order to catch the culprit making these false and harassing posts. I declined, as I do not think giving out personal/identifying information such as IP addresses on members of my community without their permission is really a good thing to do you? Also, I have no proof that this person is really representing Sarah or that the posts made about her are false. I have no proof that they are true either, but until I get proof either way, I think the best thing is to not take any drastic actions. They requested I not tell DTC about them contacting me, and I intended not to, simply because it was the most neutral action to take, but then they made that post and made their intentions public. So I feel fine with telling you all, including DTC, about the email now. But meanwhile, elsewhere on the internet, other people were having their own discussion about the Sarah saga, and they would quickly discover much more than they first expected.
Dun 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 dun.
On August 19th, 2008, a member of the Something Awful forums named Jabberwock posted a thread entitled, "If You Thought Furries Were Bad," which linked to the 11 parts of the Sarah saga that had been posted so far. The responses seemed mostly to reflect amusement, though quite a number of forum members echoed the doubt displayed in the comments of the posts themselves. One user, however, who went by Jägerhunde, had a different response. Quote, I haven't read through the journals, I only started the first, but I swear this could be about a girl I knew and even once dated in that really vague, sad high school nerd way. She claimed that she was soul bonded to the Eris character from Final Fantasy VII, that her girlfriend was soul bonded to Sephiroth, and she swore at one point with perfect seriousness that she was carrying Sephiroth's spirit child. Apparently, she'd conducted an elaborate fantasy life with these characters in her head and had written pages upon pages of god-awful fanfiction about it. So far as I know, she grew out of it eventually, but when I say eventually, I mean like late 20s. Even when I knew her at 16, this kind of behavior from her made me want to stay far the fuck away. Oh yeah, the girl in question also changed her name to some bullshit nerd fantasy name she made up and absolutely refused to ever be addressed by her birth name. After reading through the rest of the entries, Jägerhunde returned the next day with a new post that took the other readers aback. Pretty sure I've got this all sewn up, goons. Allow me to introduce you to Catherine Rain. By pure chance, Jägerhunde had been in a small writing club in high school with Catherine and still knew her Flickr account, her DeviantArt account, and her LiveJournal account. They also discovered the Flickr account of someone cosplaying as Sasarai, who had numerous pictures of both herself and Catherine. One of these images credited her as Catherine Silverberg, Silverberg being the surname of a family of characters from Suikoden, known for their tactical prowess in war. Other photographs had Catherine in a white dress, something that Sarah had worn in the Sarah saga. But the most telling piece of evidence Jägerhunde discovered was legal paperwork of her name change. By searching for her name in the county archives, he was able to discover her court schedule for when she legally changed her name. Though the accounts of Pete and his housemates were still doubted, the identity of Sarah seemed almost certain. They also were able to track down the website that this soul bonding community was using to proselytize curious internet users. Another person rediscovered the pamphlets that they would hand out at conventions. Part of it reads, "The runes are devoted to preserving the natural order of life. While it can't be denied that their bearers have often experienced great hardship as a result of bearing the runes, we know that this is due to inexperienced bearers with no magical training, suddenly and unexpectedly receiving the runes' gifts. With no knowledge of how to live in harmony with these powerful entities, they can't control the vast forces raging in turmoil inside themselves.
Oh,
But if
God.
people are taught to listen to and understand the runes,
Puberty!
we can have healthy, positive relationships with them that we were always meant to have. The end
fuck
of the
puberty.
statement encourages
Fuck
readers
puberty.
to contact Bishop Sasarai. After looking through the information
Oh,
on the
the
Final
pubertus.
Fantasy House, Jägerhunde made another assertion. That
I hear
Catherine had
places
also
I don't
been deeply
understand.
involved with Jen and Hojo. He believed that she was in fact both Candy
Like my
Wrapper, the
forehead.
person who had written the list on the website, as well as Eris, the apprentice that Jen had lost. Catherine had also been attending the University of Delaware during the events of the Final Fantasy House, only a 2-hour drive from State College. It appeared that, after these two distanced themselves from one another, Catherine began her own soul-bonding community based on the Suikoden games, gathering followers over the years. Though the evidence linking
So
the two was
Ares came a
circumstantial, the
cultist too?
specificity of it left little doubt, and this revived interest in the Final
Well, one
Fantasy
cult
House
can't-
enough that new
isn't
people
working.
were
Might
again
as well just
discovering it.
make
Do
more.
another one. I mean, it's easy.
YOLO.
On August 22nd, just 2 days after Jägerhunde had posted about Catherine, he made another post saying, quote, "Took a day off, everyone. I don't really have anything more to add, except to mention to everyone that I've become aware that our protagonist is now aware of this thread. Say hi, everyone." Gleefully, the rest of the forum members began to post messages to Catherine, mocking and teasing her, claiming to be soul-bonded to any number of characters or objects. That same day, however, an update was posted to the Final Fantasy House website. Quote, "I updated some stuff to make it slightly more legible. Evidently, housemate Horror's Sarah is not Rain Crystal. This comes to me via the writer of the Sarah saga. If you think he's lying or that I'm lying, that is your own business, but that is what he told me. Rain Crystal's behavior, soul bond nuttiness, getting money for it, etc., is similar enough to Sarah that she is harassing the writer to stop posting his lies about her. As such, I still think she's worth warning people about. I am sorry, but based on my experiences and the experiences of others, soul bonders are dangerous freakos." Unquote. The next day, Jägerhunde had a strongly worded reply.
Oh.
"This is actually a goddamn lie.
Oh,
Greta
no.
is a litigious-loving nut, and it sounds to me like housemate Horror Dude is doing damage control. I don't blame the Final Fantasy VII House author, since he's probably taking it simply on faith that our housemate Horror author is telling the truth. But he's not, and anyone who's read this far through the thread should see through this pathetic obfuscation pretty easily." Unquote. In response to one person asking for clarification, Jägerhunde replied, "It would be irresponsible for me to say that Greta and her friends have their collective panties in a wad about the housemate Horror thing and have been pressuring the author to recant, so I won't. I'd like to add that it's possible that the housemate Horror author is a very elaborate troll, but even if he is, this is clearly someone who knows Greta, if it's her, of course, and while I'm willing to entertain the idea that some of the particulars might be fabricated, the fact that anybody, you know, like maybe Greta, has possibly gotten so defensive about a series of stories, which even use false names, says much about that person." Unquote. Finally, on August 24th, in mid-afternoon, all parts of the story were removed from the housemate Horror blog.
Ooh.
However, working from Google Cache, the members of the forum were able to piece together all of the parts that had been written by Dragon Tiger Claw and archive it on the forum, though it also had been saved on the Wayback Machine. That same day, the original...
Oh, come on. You remember the days. Heck, you're not even far from those days.
Well, what do you know? When something awful found Catherine Rain, things
really be
really
like that
heated up.
sometimes, you know?
The original
It is.
saga got regular
It's,
harassment
you know,
until
just
the
one of those
story
things.
damage.
Again, Chaos
Considering
Deco
the
Aura.
mind-numbing level
You know how
of
old that fucking
intricate
name
detail
is?
between Catherine's data and the
Stupid
data of
old.
Sarah,
Actually,
I'm going to agree
it's
with
funny,
Goons.
Setrin is actually one of my
He was
oldest
just doing
online
damage
games.
control. It's obviously her.
It's almost one of my
The
first
current
ones,
theory
actually.
is, in one last-ditch effort
I've
to
had a very
avoid
tame
more
history with my
Alice with her,
gaming
he deleted all the
conventions.
posts. Well, Greta,
Mine's
you're
been
skeptical.
slightly
Took
consistent.
away my train wreck that I was reading to defend your crazy cult. If he was writing
It's usually
fiction
Aura
not,
or
you took away
Oriana,
the
but
fun.
Oriana's
Thanks to
always a
something
dragon
awful,
queen.
we'll
Black
have
dragon
lots of
specifically.
Nice photos and links all here
'Cause, you know,
about you in just a
edgelord!
little while. Unquote. This last update
Be fair,
remains on the
be
website
more
to this day,
discerned
and a
to,
link
like,
to the
just
Sarah
D&D
Saga
in
thread on
general.
Something Awful is provided
Black
farther
Dragon's
down the
everything.
page.
And
Now,
they're
the
spurry.
Final Fantasy House's website.
I didn't do
and
too much on the
Sarah Saga
furry.
remain as a warning about
I was a hentai RPer for the most
but they
part.
also serve as an example.
'Cause,
of
you know,
how
girls on the
practice
internet.
collapses the distances between people,
So we hung out in Yahoo user rooms, which there was a slave market. So I had like we had 5 slots for screen names. So 5 of them were hentai characters. Yeah.
I dig it. I dig it.
Yeah, good old back in the days. And fuck those one-liners. Fuck those one-liners.
Oh my god.
Those one-liners. Have an imagination, you son of a bitch.
It's like
I know my
write an
husband's
entire
making fun of me in the distance.
Oh, fucking real talk though. Like seriously, fucking one-liners, man. Write an entire sentence and it's like, I coom. It's like, bitch. Shut the fuck.
Yeah, cool. You grabbed my tits. Is that it?
I strokey the peen. Very good. It's
Man.
It's fucking these chumps.
Yeah, people are just again. God damn it all.
There's some derpy fellers out there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've also had certain characters that were specifically non-hentai characters. So I had a demigoddess, based off of a lovely comic series I enjoyed called Victory. So she is the demigoddess of technically happiness, and I am being assaulted by rubber bands.
Are you okay?
My husband opens the door and fires a fucking rubber band at me and leaves.
He's just like, no. It's like, no. It's just how it was.
But
you cannot oppress us.
Get oppress us!
We are the low majority.
You missed!
Of the internet's content creators, there are few so controversial as Philip Burnell, better known online as Darkside Phil, styled with
Oh,
yeah,
Darkside
sports a
Phil.
respectable number of
Yeah, I don't know.
over 100.
You son of a
The more notable
bitch.
figure is his number of uploads and their frequency. Since
Nope!
2008, he has
Fuck
uploaded
you!
tens of thousands of videos, usually
get squirted
10
with the
20
fucking
minutes
squirt
long,
bottle.
and he still uploads more than a dozen.
Get all
daily.
wet.
This is in
It's
addition
my husband's
to another
fault.
channel where he uploads video logs or vlogs where he talks about himself and what he's doing, typically for over an hour at a time.
But yeah, I had a
On
guy
his
attempt
Patreon
to
page, he
rape a
makes over
demigoddess. and it was
$1,000
hilarious.
every month from nearly 200 different
Because that
patrons.
always goes
Searching
well.
for him
Oh,
on
yeah.
YouTube, however, brings up
It's
far
never
more than just
gone
his own
wrong,
videos.
ever.
No,
He
never.
Compilations of his gameplay.
Oh,
constructed
Not
to
like
mock
they have
and
like
tease him,
godlike
while others
omnipotence or
offer
something.
comments
That
on
would
what
be
he has
insane.
wrong, implying that he once had a
See, this is
loyal
when you
and
fuck up. See, when you find that shit
He
says gluten free,
often is
that's what
cited by
happens.
other content
I mean,
creators as a negative example
I don't
of their reasons for doing so.
I guess I'm not against not having gluten in my beer. It's not really a beer, but
everybody that isn't you.
I don't know. I bought a White Claw. I got the
Want to
grapefruit.
be the fucking court jester? No, you don't.
Ooh, sounds good.
So
It's not
who
too
is
terrible.
he, and
I
how
found I
did he
just
gain the
prefer
ire
sour
of so
beers.
many?
I'm sick and tired of sweet.
Fair enough, fair enough.
If you want to try something called Jolly
Burnell
Pumpkin.
entered the gaming community in the early 2000s as a fighting game competitor. Though he
Like
would
right now?
commonly compete in
Shit.
local tournaments,
Alright.
he struggled to place and earned himself the title of the King of Hate. Philip himself claims that this nickname was earned due to the unpopular opinions he touts and because he uses the hatred against him as a
Oh, yeah, it's a nice
motivator
sour
with other
beer.
tournament
It's one of
goers
those big
tell a different
bottles.
tale. They
$10
claim that he
in
received
my
this
state.
nickname because of his bouts of rage,
Nice.
argumentative
Not
disposition,
bad. Not bad
and
at all.
poor conduct.
I still got some vodka.
Stop recording. No one gets shit playing. You can't hold on.
I'll be right back. I gotta go do something.
Wait, go into bed first.
Oh,
Where am I playing? You still
Got it.
haven't told me.
There you go.
Jesus Christ! I treat you like you're a
what the hell?
According to
Alright,
himself,
into bed.
he had poured all of his available
Right.
time
Dunka
and
dunka.
funds during this period into practicing and competing in a game called Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo,
Thank you,
traveling
thank you.
Oh!
across the East Coast to attend tournaments. In 2005, Philip decided that he would take out thousands of dollars in credit card loans to attend the Evolution Championship Series, better known as EVO, an event where numerous
Okay, I have
tournaments with
heard
different
about
fighting
this one
games
kind
would
of.
take place. By far,
Yeah,
it is
anyways,
the
I'll be
largest
right
of its
back.
kind. There,
Okay,
he would
Diggy.
enter the tournament for Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo, where he would take 4th place underneath 3 Japanese players. Latching onto this accomplishment, he quickly proclaimed himself the best Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo player in America, since no other American players had placed above him. But other players in the community were unimpressed. This particular tournament used a special version of the game ported from the arcades onto the PlayStation game console, and this port was widely considered to be far less balanced and vastly inferior for numerous reasons, including unresponsive controls and extremely problematic bugs. As such, many top-level competitors boycotted the tournament. One other competitor, Alex Valle, had declared that he was going to enter the tournament not out of a competitive spirit, but to gatekeep other competitors whom he felt didn't deserve the prize money or prestige, but he was forced to cancel at the last minute due to work obligations. Despite the criticism toward the game and the event itself, Philip's pride was inflated by taking 4th place, and he began touting his superiority online and in interviews after EVO.
To disrespect the people that got top 8 at Evolution, to make excuses because it's on console, it's ridiculous. And it's unacceptable.
For 2 more years, he would compete in tournaments, but he never found success like he had at the 2005 EVO event. Most other high-level competitors saw his 4th place victory as a fluke due to the version of the game being played and the lack of other high-level competition, and his tournament results after EVO were seen to reflect his true level of skill.
Looking for. You got some idiot named DSP who's a total piece of shit, by the way. I like to get that on YouTube, but this guy thought he was hot shit because he beat me and Choi in a game that was like, it's like fucking Neo Geo conversion of Street Fighter or some crap, dude. and he was so proud that he put under as a signature he's the #1 US ranked Super Turbo player that year. But I mean, look at him now. I mean, he's just.
With his controversy fading, he too faded from the competitive scene. In 2005 also had marked the year of YouTube's creation, and in 2007, just 2 years later, people began uploading videos of themselves playing video games while often adding their own commentary over their gameplay, a practice borrowed from internet forums. They also borrowed the name, Let's Plays. Discovering this medium, Philip began posting his own videos onto YouTube by pointing a video camera at his television screen, then uploading the files onto YouTube on a channel under his typical pseudonym, Darkside Phil, in all undercase.
Alright. Obviously he's a pretty bad driver, but apparently they're all drunk. Because no one's shooting at.
Side note, during this time there were 2 acceptable practices for recording gameplay footage for a Let's Play. The first was to use what's called a capture card, a device that allows video and audio to be recorded directly onto a computer from a video game console. A similar process could be done with a camcorder. The second was to simply point a camera at the screen and use the built-in microphone to capture voice and gameplay. Of these options, the former was far preferable, but viewing choices at the time were limited, and so some Let's Players used the latter method and found some success. Philip originally began creating videos for fun, but he found inordinate popularity. Though he was admittedly terrible at many of the games he played, he often would play this off in a way that his viewers enjoyed, with off-color humor and a cocky personality. These viewers would often cite his authentic reactions as a reason for enjoying his content. Many others, however, considered his laugh grating and his humor obscene and dull, among other things.
What am I supposed to do? Oh, come on! You die so fucking quickly.
Despite this, some of his videos would receive tens of thousands of views, a very high number especially during that time, and he would regularly appear on the front page of YouTube with footage of new games. On September 9th, 2009, he also created a blog channel, which he called The King of Hate HD in all capital letters. This channel also began collecting considerable views on a small number of his frequent videos. Philip's pattern for video production was mostly consistent. He would play games in blocks of several hours, recording his playing session by placing a camera on a coffee table near the screen. Once he was finished playing, he would chop up the videos into approximately 10-minute segments and upload each of those segments onto his gaming channel individually. In April of 2010, Philip began to experience the first signs of trouble. Apparently, Ubisoft had seen some of Philip's gameplay footage of Splinter Cell Conviction and complained to the YouTube administrators, who promptly shut down his channel out of fear of litigation. YouTube then contacted Ubisoft to verify the concern, but Ubisoft stated that they had made no such claim. In fact, it had been an anonymous internet user who had created a false account in an attempt to shut down Philip's YouTube channel, at least for a time. Why they wanted this is uncertain, but the channel was reinstated shortly after. As time went on, Philip uploaded more and more videos until he was reliably uploading over a dozen videos a day. Near the end of that year, he was laid off from his job, and so he established a Google AdSense account to start monetizing his videos. AdSense is the system that Google uses to distribute advertisements and pay content creators for their views and the number of times someone interacts with an ad or the video itself. Along with this, he started a new series on his blog channel in October of that year called DSP Tries It, where he would review food items and occasionally video game peripherals. These videos would also be monetized under his AdSense account. But Philip would not have this revenue stream for long. Once his AdSense account was approved, he began requesting that his viewers interact with his videos more, strongly implying that viewers should click on ads in an effort to increase his revenue. What he wasn't aware of was that asking viewers to click on ads was disallowed in the contract for AdSense, and so his account was banned, meaning that he could no longer make money directly off of advertisements for any of his videos on any of his channels. Creating multiple AdSense accounts is disallowed by the service, meaning that Philip could not monetize his videos. Unemployed and without income from YouTube, Philip began uploading his videos to Blip.tv, a competing video hosting service, and received a lucrative partnership offer. Only a few months after he began using Blip, however, he was banned from the site for making numerous anti-Semitic jokes.
This is what happens when you let the Jews do whatever they want. You've let the Jews overrun space, and now look at this. Hello, Jew. Give me your money. You've hoarded it for far too long.
What are we listening to now?
Huh?
What have I come back to, Ken?
You've come back to the like fucking best part. What's his face was like in a fucking. He went to a different site, but he got banned off because he's making anti-Semitic jokes, and that's the part you're listening to.
Oh, okay. Jesus Christ.
You came back at like just the perfect time to just hear that.
Videos to become a managed
Alrighty then.
allowing Machinima to place advertisements on his videos under their AdSense account.
I thought you got bored and just started posting
money through videos on YouTube as a
This
full-time
dude just
career.
started posting just random like.
I never know with you, man. Never know with you. But I'm okay with.
This is my active channel.
I was gonna say, hey, if anything, I'm not
On the
racist.
side, if you're a really big fan of fighting games and
Are you sure?
Very sensitive to other people with that.
you're gonna want to head over
I'll
to
make a
my
racist joke, but I'll never mean it in like good honesty.
It's gonna work out. And
Except for, you know, chicks without dicks.
occupation, at least for the short term.
Girls without PP
That
don't
was good.
deserve.
Fuck those chicks without dicks.
in the long term, which is excellent. So
They
Despite
don't
Philip's
have one, just
optimism,
grow
things
one.
would not stay so
Like a
simple
real
for long.
one.
Over the course of
Can't say that.
2011, Philip would
It's
find
Girl power!
more viewers, but many of his older fans would begin to sour towards
I'm
him.
all for
By this point,
empowering
many
women
other Let's Players
with
had
this.
joined the scene, uploading
Hey,
their own
pure equality. We deserve penises too.
Compared to Philip's camera
Everyone
method,
deserves
these
dongs.
other recording styles provided far higher quality of both video and audio. But even the hardcore fans who were used
All
to
the
this
peens
camera
belong to
recording
us.
method were finding
Oh
frustration.
wow!
with
I found a random chest with a bunch of iron and fucking emeralds.
Response,
Nice.
many commenters would complain about his
I'm gonna
inflated
give a
ego
couple
and his
iron
habit of
blocks,
blaming the game
and you know
rather
what? A
than
diamond sword.
himself
We'll
an
give them a
inordinate
diamond
amount.
sword.
When
Whoever
competing with
finds this
others in
chest gets a
online
diamond
games,
sword.
He would always degrade his opponent. If he won, he would profess his opponent's lack of skill, and if he lost, he would accuse the
I
opponent
doubt it
of
will
illegitimate
ever be
tactics,
discovered.
or he would complain of faulty controls.
that's called cheating.
You're like
and that's
I
what everyone does
straight
online,
up far
which is why
right.
you shouldn't fucking
I have no reference as to where the hell I am.
fans want, so hope
But yeah, I should probably put a map mod on. Apparently, I can do that on my end without affecting the server. So
often manifest as
Yeah,
abuse
there's
of his
there's
equipment.
map mods.
This is fucking bullshit.
I just gotta figure out how to install it properly, or get off my lazy ass and do
Philip would
it.
also become belligerent
God,
on
this
his
guy's a
social
jerk.
media. For example, when game reviewer
Yeah,
Rich Dyer
he's like-
posted a review for IGN with
he's
which he
just a complete
disagreed,
dickhead.
he attacked Dyer for not providing an objective review, and after the argument, Philip posted a vlog onto his King of Hate HD YouTube channel attacking him further.
And he just got all offended that, like, I told him that I work full-time on YouTube. Like, okay, jealous much? That's what I should have said. Jealous much? But anyway...
He also would attack other YouTubers, notably PewDiePie, iJustine, and Tobuscus, each for
Oh,
different reasons.
PewDiePie.
While his former fans
Yeah,
claimed that this
PewDiePie.
was a change in character,
Oh, I thought you said
Philip's
PewDiePie.
detractors would point to these things
Oh.
as already existing issues becoming more
happens.
evident. In light of these problems, Philip's viewership
Should make a
and
YouTube channel
therefore
called
his livelihood
PewDiePie.
began slipping.
PewDiePie.
Between November of 2011 and April of
It's me,
2012, he would
PewDiePie.
drop from nearly 13.5 million monthly views to 5.3
Actually, doesn't
million,
his
a
wife
drop
own
of
that
over
channel?
60%, after which his
I have
viewership
no
continued
idea.
to slip in a
I didn't even
downward
know that
trend
was a
for the
channel.
rest of the year. Things
I
got
believe
even
she made a
worse
little
for him
sub-channel
after
called
Machinima
PewDiePie.
renegotiated his contract
Huh.
later in the year,
Dang.
reducing his pay. Why this occurred is uncertain,
Yeah,
but there
well.
is speculation
Ah.
that it was
I don't know
because of
much
his
about the
diminishing
feuds.
viewership and
Oh.
the belief that it would
Me
continue
neither.
to decrease. Philip,
He's
in large
okay to
part,
watch.
believed his
I don't mind him.
viewership issues to be not because of his content, but rather
Eh,
because
his
of
viewership's just
changes that
paying
were
for me.
occurring in the back end of YouTube.
Which is
He
fair.
argued that YouTube
It
was
is
changing
okay.
to
God
accommodate
damn it,
viral
Spam!
content
How
while
can you not like the same
simultaneously
YouTuber I like?
called the
We can't be
orthodox
friends, you son of a bitch.
being deprioritized.
How dare you have
It was
different opinions?
deprioritization that was to blame
Preposterous
for
in
his decreasing
2020.
viewership. Many of his fans
Fuck that,
and
you
all
have to
his
have the same
detractors,
opinions.
however, were unconvinced
What
that
are you,
this was
some
the
kind of
only
Nazi?
problem, if it even was one.
It's like, oh,
Many
no.
indicted him for his inflexibility.
You're infringing on my
Yeah,
First
see that
Amendment.
His adamant refusal to alter his content production or release methods. Sometime over the course of
Sorry.
2011, Philip had
No, you're
started
fine.
dating
I'm fine, buddy.
Liana Hongan, known better by the pseudonym
Holy
Panda
shit, there's a
while
shit
Philip's
ton of
fanbase
little
seemed
water zombies
generally
over
happy
here.
that he was now in a relationship,
Jesus
there was a
Christ.
subset who weren't so enthused. Many were shocked to learn that Liana was 11 years Philip's junior, and that they had started dating just after she had turned 18, but most were more concerned about Liana's aggressive tone during cooperative gameplay.
Everyone press start.
No more talking. Press the start before I kill you all.
Oh.
It's a violent version of Owl.
I don't know, it sounds normal to Owl.
You probably can't even ready up.
Okay, maybe that's aggressive, yeah.
2011 also marked
Yeah.
other strange
Yeah.
behaviors from Philip. For example, for his DSP
Owl's
Tries It
more
series,
gentle.
he took video of
Sure.
himself showering.
At least she
with
uses
active body
KY,
scrub.
right?
she gives a
Yeah. Get a little handsy beforehand. Yeah, exactly.
But even compared to all of this, his worst trouble
the warm
was
up
yet
reach
to
around,
come.
you know.
Trouble that would
Ooh.
arise from an
Oh,
unexpected
flowers?
place,
Sweet.
his own fan base.
finally got mending in my pictures.
This music throws me
2012,
off.
One of Philip's fans, going by the name Evil AJ 2010, was blocked from commenting on Philip's videos when he mentioned his belief that Pandali was the cause of Philip's change of attitude and, therefore, loss of viewers. Incensed by his banning, Evil AJ published a montage of Philip's gameplay footage of Metal Gear Solid 2: Sons of Liberty in early 2013, entitling it, "This is how you don't play MGS2." Throughout the nearly hour-long montage, he peppered in comments from viewers frustrated with how poorly Philip was playing, especially noting how he was ignoring important mechanics as a direct response to Philip's claim that viewers were extremely positive to the playthrough. This video showcased some of the worst of his play, where he would often blame the controls or game design for his poor performance. When
Oh.
exactly this video went online
Actually blaming
and
the
its precise
controller in
viewership
2020.
have been lost, but some sources claim that it
Oh, yeah, it's
quickly
not 2020,
garnered
it's
over
a
a
long time
million
ago.
views. One of
True.
Philip's tweets
Yeah, yeah.
apparently criticizing the video for stealing his footage.
We just have to get
indicates
good in
the output that
2020.
Currently exists. These
Just
imply that
get
the
good.
original was
Get good,
somehow
man.
taken
Do it
Get
down,
good.
possibly by
Dude,
Philip,
Dark
and then
Souls has
later
taught all of us.
re-uploaded by Evil
Get
AJ
good.
on
I
February
avoided Dark
16th,
Souls.
2013. Whatever the
It's a fun
exact
game,
case
not gonna
may
lie.
be, this video
It's not as hard as
quickly
everyone
sparked a
thinks.
series
Oh,
of
no,
similar
I just have to get
montages,
good.
Each with a title
I don't want to get good.
This is how you don't play, showcasing Philip's worst
Maybe
moments.
one
I
day.
appreciate
These
Mike.
videos would range
It's
in length
like
from 10
you have the
minutes to
mentality
over
of like
2
the
hours.
people that
In
want to
short
learn
order,
poetry
these
but also
montages
don't want to
would
learn
overtake
like the
Philip's
study
own
of poetry
video
because then
content
you
when
could just
searching for his
dissect
channel
it and
due
it
to their
ruins all the fun of
popularity,
poetry.
pushing his own content farther down the
I
search
did my
results.
good job in,
Enraged by
you know,
this,
high
set
school
about
writing
attempting to
poetry.
remove
I'm a
these videos
professional.
from
I know what
YouTube.
I'm doing.
In a misunderstanding of fair use law, he claimed that these videos were
It's like
violating his
I know how
copyright
poems to go
and
together,
argued
but I
that
don't want
while
to like
his
dissect
videos
them
were
and just
transformative since he
take
was
out all
playing
the
the game,
fun that
these
comes
other
from
videos
writing.
were stealing his content
Don't mind
for
some
huge
learning some
footage.
stuff,
And so,
but
he was
meh.
about
It's like,
systematically
oh,
flagging
the
the
semicolon
videos
doesn't
for
go there,
YouTube to
and
review.
rhyming in this
Despite
part
his
doesn't
efforts,
make any
these
sense.
videos
Ah,
continued to
fucking
rise
grammar
and
chat
rise
Nazis.
as the months dragged on.
I don't
Along
want to
with
have
this,
it right. It just needs to
parroting
sound
the
right.
DSP Tries It videos
As
would
long as
gain
it sounds
popularity,
nice.
criticizing
Yeah,
different
that's
aspects
all that
of his
matters,
theories
right?
or his character,
The words kind of
especially
line up. You
ego.
just spew
For
it all
example,
out
one
like
user
vomit on
criticized
paper.
Philip's belief that his
Oh,
last
good.
Word
videos
vomit.
were works of art, and that
Word-
the
word
game and
vomit,
his
best vomit.
commentary
What
are
help
his
word
ingredients
vomit?
to
Isn't
create
that
it.
what I do most
This
of
is
the
how
time?
this is how we get time cube.
The ingredients to make my work of art.
Wait, what?
He's calling his videos a work of art. It's really just not.
You serious?
Serious?
Though he was gaining newfound notoriety, it wasn't enough to change the downward trend of his viewership. As more and more of these videos proliferated, public opinion against Philip worsened, as did his viewer count, and more internet denizens became aware of his existence through a negative paradigm. Even switching over from using a video camera to direct capture couldn't staunch the leaking viewership. To make matters worse, Machinima had again cut his pay in early 2013, increasing Philip's financial strain. However, with his AdSense account
Fuck
disabled
Machinima!
indefinitely and his public image souring, Philip
Yeah,
had little
hell,
recourse.
Machinima.
To supplement his income, he began
Evil
streaming on
bastards.
a new platform called Twitch, which
You do
offered
know
an
Warp
online
Zone has their
venue for
channel
gamers
back,
to play
right?
games and interact with fans live.
Wait, Warp Zone has
Even
their channel
here,
back?
he could
Yeah.
escape trouble.
Um,
He became
the-
known
Fuck yeah.
for banning
Yeah.
and censoring
So there's a really cool thing that ended up happening is, you know, the Machinima thing that imploded. So a lot of the IPs were lost to the banks. So people would have to buy back their IPs. But, you know, a lot of these people didn't have money. People weren't getting paid, shit like that.
egregious to his fan base.
Right.
His girlfriend
So,
Diana derided the game Kingdom
Good
Hearts
Mythical
2 in the chat
Morning
section
bought a
while
bunch of
Philip
these
was playing.
IPs, paid
When
off
the
their
chat
debt,
devolved
and
into
whatever
argumentation,
was that
Philip
needed to be
watched the
done,
chat so that
and then
any
just
subscriber
gave
could
back
talk.
these IPs, and Machinima, or Warp Zone was one of them.
Spilled over onto Leanna too.
Oh, so that's why a lot of people were really fucking for Good Mythical Morning lately.
Mm-hmm.
I was wondering why they're cropping up a lot lately. It's like, I don't mind Rhett and Link, I just don't like their content all that much.
I like their earlier stuff, you know, again, first 2 seasons are great. After that, it's okay. I'll watch, I like their cool chef guy that they have. That, like, turns like a low-end meal thing. That shit's cool.
Yeah, that's cool. I love
2014
it.
saw major changes for Philip. Taking out more loans, he purchased a new condominium, this one in Seattle,
quartz into
Washington,
blocks to
bringing
start
Leanna to live with him.
It was something I wanted to talk
The
the bakery
provide him
to.
with the motivation
I
and
would have
energy
like
to serve
worked on
that
buying the equipment, get the wiring done. I wanted to put cameras over our tables that we like work on kneading dough, putting a lot of product together. Not sharing the recipe, but just simply, you know, show the work table. I thought that would be fun.
Twitch admins. At the time, Twitch's
But of course, you
servers
know,
were able to
the
handle
chef,
traffic.
the baker was worried,
So, when
stuff
Philip was
would.
streaming at a quality that the
Yeah.
servers were unable to handle.
Homemade
he politely
recipes, these are
requested
70-year-old
reduce the
recipes
bitrate
from
of his
Germany.
stream. Philip, annoyed,
Right.
asked why
So,
other
meh.
streamers could stream at higher bit rates, but the Twitch admin who
Who knows?
contacted him
Maybe I'll open up a
confirmed
bakery
that others
sometime.
did not,
I've got
and
enough
that
skill.
Philip must
I can do
abide by
things.
the rules as other content creators did.
And all I have to
Very
do
good.
is call up
Drop in
Paul
quality,
and
he began
Donut
streaming on
Dave, and
YouTube
it's like,
to
yeah,
help
we'll
with
be on
their
it.
streaming platform, but received
Yeah,
far
let's fucking
fewer
make some
views,
food.
again decreasing his
Fuck
income while
yeah.
he was still in debt for the condominium. On January
So I get
2nd,
super sappy with that job. That
2015,
job is
prospects
one
were
of those
looking
things
better
that I
for
got
him.
paid
He
shit.
created a Patreon page for
Absolute and
himself.
utter
In the first
shit.
month, he made over
But I love the job.
$1,100
Got
but
paid
most
dirt
of
and pennies, but love the
helping to
work.
shore up his
Yeah.
lost income.
The nice
But
thing
this
was
opportunity
though is
would not last.
the owner of the
On June
bakery
24th,
was
5
there
months
beside you
after the launch
working.
of his
That
Patreon,
woman
Philip
worked
was
like
swatted
20
while he
fucking
was
hours a
streaming.
day, I
The
swear
term
at
swatted
times.
refers to the questionable
Jesus.
online
She
practice
decorated the
that had
cake, she
increasing
would work
popularity
all
during
day,
that
you know,
time
answer the
period.
girls'
It
dumb
involves
stupid
a
questions
person
that they should
sending
already have
an
the
anonymous
answers
tip
to.
the police in the area
And
there
that
is
she would
some
come in at
serious
night, like
situation
especially
at
in the
a screener's
summertime,
location,
and
such
work
as a
till like
hostage,
1 o'clock in the
thus
morning
instigating a
and
response
be
to
up
the
at 9
SWAT
in the
team,
morning.
who would go to the person's house or
Right.
apartment.
Sometimes she would be
The
there till
intention
3
was to
o'clock in the
force
morning.
the SWAT
And
team
then
to
just do it
kill
all
the
over
video
again.
stream, potentially injuring or arresting
Yeah.
the streamer
Oh.
inside
I
while
love that
the
woman.
stream is running. This particular
Ugh,
incident
the
ended
video
quickly and
mentions
peacefully,
swatting.
however, with the
Oh.
officers bantering to each
Disgusting.
other that
God.
the incident was, quote,
It is.
gamer shit. But it was only the beginning in an uptick of negative behavior targeting Philip. On June 26th, just
only
2
certain
days
things
after
on the
the
internet
swatting
just
attack, Philip's stream
die
was struck
permanently.
again, this time with a
Swatting
dedicated
would
denial of
definitely
service
be one of
attack,
them.
better known
Ah,
as
but you know
DDoS.
it won't
The function
happen.
of such an attack is to
Yeah.
overwhelm a person's internet modem, temporarily
you know,
shutting
people
off
suck.
internet access. But the largest blow
The
by
internet
far
sucks
was
and
against
everything's
his
awful,
videos
but
in general.
the internet can
A
also
small
be
number
pretty
of people
okay.
began
Oh, yeah.
flagging some of Philip's videos.
People can be pretty
But
neat.
solidly
Content
okay.
in the videos was
But
utilized
just solidly
without
okay,
the
not
permission
like
of the
good
artist.
or anything.
Nah,
It's not
Whenever
like too
received a
crazy.
first
It's
strike
okay.
on either account, the respective account would be taken offline
Mildly okay.
temporarily,
It's okay.
cutting him off from one of
But
his
yeah,
few
the other cool
precious
thing that
sources
bitch
of
would do
revenue.
for us
At
is
the
actually buy us
recommendation of
good
the
Christmas
cinema,
presents.
Philip set all of his
Like, I swear to God,
videos
she
to
spent
fan
like
art as
$100
private,
on us
thus
each year.
removing them from public
And then she'd buy us
accessibility.
birthday
This
presents.
action had an unintended
Even if it was just a little
consequence.
card and a
YouTube's
little
search
something.
algorithms
She'd
considered
buy me a
views
fifth
on
of
these
rum.
videos to be
Fucking
lost.
fifth of rum!
Socialblade.com
And some energy
public
drinks.
graphs show that according to
That's
YouTube's
free
algorithms,
fucking
Philip
shit.
net
I'm
logged
fucking kidding.
1.37 million views on his channel.
How many people can say that their boss had bought them a fucking fifth of rum for Christmas?
In doing so, his videos were deprioritized
Not
by
many.
YouTube's search and
Exactly.
recommendation engines, further reducing the visibility of his channel. Between July and September
like-
of 2015, Philip lost approximately
I will miss that
500,000
job.
monthly
I will
views,
miss that
which
job greatly.
constituted 15% of his remaining viewership, a sharp downturn.
But fuck
in
those
his
people.
already
Have the good-
dwindling revenue.
I was gonna say, as
Cinema
long as you have the
facing
good memories
trouble
from it,
after
still
a number
is.
of publicized scandals and
Honestly,
seeing
if they
Philip's
just kept the head
viewership loss,
baker and just dealt with his
renegotiated
grumpiness.
again to pay him even less to
Yeah.
shore up his income.
All they
he
had to
launched
do
yet
was listen
another
to him.
channel,
That's it.
this
That's
one
all they had to
called
do.
KO Gaming, which he launched on January 14th,
No, the person who's been
2016.
secondhand
This
on the
channel was
bakery
created
for
to
10
be a
years doesn't know what he's talking
content,
about.
something Philip had refrained from doing during most of his career on YouTube.
Almost like
These
they have
videos
skill and
received mixed
experience.
viewership.
It's unmatched.
Some performed well, while others failed to break 10,000
Ugh.
views even a year later. Philip began
It'd
showing
be like
strange
that.
patterns in his Patreon rewards
Oh yeah,
during 2015
they saved
as
many
well.
factories
Most
from
notably, he had
bankruptcy
asked for a
and stuff.
significant amount of money to produce a reboot
They had, you
of
know,
an old
thousands
cheaply
and
produced show
millions
he
of
had
dollars
created
at
with some
hand to
friends
fix the
about 4
problem.
years prior, called Project 7. However, after collecting the money,
Oh,
he
I
stated
found a
that he
big
would
coral
have to
reef.
postpone the filming of the
Shit.
show indefinitely to concentrate on his regular content. He also made promises
that's
for other
cool.
videos with high monetary goals on Patreon. For example, his patrons voted for him to make a best and worst moments
I've never seen a
montage
proper
of his
coral
playthrough
reef.
of Alan Wake, which was to be released that September. However,
Wait,
after
we
the
have
first
one
part
near
received
the-
weak viewership,
Kinda-
he
Was it, like,
decided
my area?
against fulfilling that
Well,
obligation.
this one's
He
got.
also made a goal for 4
Never
extra
really taken a
Minecraft
close look
sessions,
at
but
it,
he
but-
neglected that obligation as well.
Oh, like
only
a deeper
playing
ocean?
One more session for
Yeah,
similar reasons
yeah,
of
it's
low
kind of in
viewership.
ravines
Though
and
these
stuff.
failures
but-
attracted considerable
I
negative
don't know.
attention, this was nothing compared to
Th-
what
This
was
one's
about
got
to
like
occur.
the, you know, all things sticking out and the little point. I used to seeing just the little tiny corals.
On May 1st, 2016, while preparing for
Look,
a
a sea
live stream,
cucumber.
Philip accidentally streamed himself
Yeah, sea
masturbating.
cucumber.
Though the video itself
I didn't
was
stick
very
it. I didn't put sea cucumbers in not a text dungeon at all.
He attempted to cover it up, banning people.
Wait, have you not seen Not a
The word
Peen?
spread quickly, even
No.
earning himself a
Oh, you
spot
should go
on
check out
Keemstar's
Not a Peen.
show Drama Alert. This
It's
public
by main
opinion
spawn
actually
when you ever
increased his
get there.
viewership for a short time, and so he changed
I'm
his
having to
tactic,
run back all
even
the way.
retweeting
Oh,
some
yeah.
of the images
What
made
did I
to
say?
joke.
At some point, take a good chuckle
Machinima
at the
still
Not a Peen.
attempted to control the spread of information by copyright claiming any videos with the footage of Philip's mistake. These extra views, however, would soon peter out, and with a stagnant subscriber count, the gradual decrease in viewers continued throughout the rest of the year. To help salvage his income, he began streaming on Twitch again on November 29th, 2016. Philip began expressing his concerns for his finances more and more in his blogs, imploring his viewers to watch more of his videos and to subscribe to his Patreon page. In one blog, he blamed his lack of viewers on the new game releases and the fact that he claimed he was playing well instead of getting frustrated and angry.
Now the flip side of that is I've actually been doing way better at Neo than I do at Dark Souls. So a lot of group of people who like to see me rage and fail haven't been around because they watched a couple streams and went, fuck, Phil's doing good, what the fuck is this? And they left and never came back.
Yeah, that's...
I'll buy blatant lying for 200.
No, it's denial. You picked the wrong category.
At long last, on March 2nd, 2017, Machinima
Easy
removed
mistake, easy
Philip.
mistake.
It is an easy mistake, it really is.
Since Philip's AdSense account was still banned, he had no way
Did
on
they
his own to
believe
make
it
money
is the
from any of
problem?
his YouTube channels. He began to panic. However, within the month,
Unfortunately.
a company named Curse offered Philip another contract, and Philip's attitude immediately turned again, though some of his thoughts were mixed. On one hand, he was making more money than he had been with his Machinima contract, but on the other, he had lost the protection from automatic content ID claims that Machinima's managed partnership had provided him, meaning that videos of his with copyrighted music or video would have the money earned from them taken away. Sometime in April, a company by the name of Poltavi approached Philip with a tempting offer. They told Philip that they could offer him more money than Curse was currently giving him, and more. They promised that they could give him another managed partnership as well as one other thing, that they would find all of the parody videos that had become so popular and claim them for Philip, placing advertisements on them and funneling that money to him. Tantalized, Philip removed his partnership with Curse and began struggling to enter a new partnership
Parody
with
videos?
Poltavi, despite being unable to find any information on them online. After being strung along for some time,
Again,
he
think people
realized
would
that he
be
had been
dumb,
duped. Poltavi was a front for another company,
I don't know.
Bavaria
Maybe
Media,
it's people just not
who currently
understanding how
didn't
free
have the
use
clout
works.
with YouTube to offer him a managed partnership or meet
Just
any of their
sounds
other
good on
promises.
paper.
Flustered,
But
Philip
of course,
returned
then at
to
this
Curse, who
time
agreed to
that they're
take him back
talking
one
about
last
things
time in
were...
May. For now, Philip's
that could be
short-term
done.
future seems somewhat secure, despite
Yeah.
everything that has happened to him.
'Cause people
He plans
suck.
to be making good money from streaming on Twitch,
Yes,
and his
'cause
partnership with Curse will
people
be
suck.
at least enough
People
for
suck
him
a
to
lot.
pay his bills. Even so, his viewership is
It's
steadily
just the mantra
decreasing.
for humanity.
Where he
It's
once
just
had
people
nearly
suck.
13.5 million views a month, this number has decayed to
Hey, just please stop
1.84
sucking.
million, and if his deal with Curse were to break, it's uncertain
No.
what he'd do.
No,
Online
I know,
with
I
limited
understand. It's
viewership
too much to
and as
ask
a
for.
joke amongst other content
One
Until we
day.
finish.
but he also serves as a warning to those same
Come on,
creators
you know,
about the volatility
please be a
of the fan
mosquito.
base and how quickly it can turn against them.
Be the mosquito.
I just want to
Him
smack you and
here.
you'd be done. I have no life to give, you succubus. Please, be gone.
You demon of harvest. You dirty harlot.
That was one of my favorite, like, pickup lines. You know the difference between me and a mosquito? Well, a mosquito stops sucking when you slap it.
Oh my. Oh my. Oh
Ooh.
my.
What terrible thing do we have to... You know what? I've been eyeing this one. Only because the artwork looks cute and it might be terrible.
Oh no.
Digital Homicide?
Oh, Digital Homicide. Yeah, I just watched this one today too. There's a precursor one to that.
On
Yeah,
August 5th,
I think-
2016,
hold
I
on.
uploaded my first
I think it's
video
one of his
on
first
Digital
videos,
Homicide
actually.
Studios, an independent game developer who had become known
There's
for
so many
the
bees over here in the ocean. What the fuck?
That might not be me.
Oh, that bee's dying to water. Okay. Don't know where these bees keep coming from.
There
Insane.
may have been times I got bored.
Also, welcome.
Oh wait, you know what?
You're muted, just in case. Yeah.
Wait, what happened?
Oh, it's Forgotten. What's up? Forgotten one joined Jet.
Oh.
Voice.
Mouse? Oh, I don't think they
now
have
he's gone.
mics. Oh, Mayhem's up.
Mayhem.
Oh, Mayhem. Slightly tempting, but I don't know.
I am very uncertain.
I am very, very uncertain. Yeah. Oh, I know what.
Nothing much, just playing some Minecraft.
Minecraft. Wait. Oh. I think I've listened to it. This one.
Right. I need to break these portals.
Dubious business practices. They first entered a wider public consciousness after game
That happened. They are in general. Oh, okay. Well, welcome, Forgotten.
Today, when visiting the 18-year-old,
We're listening to weird shit.
It can feel like entering a digital mausoleum.
Naturally.
The visual style is reminiscent of a Saturday morning cartoon from the early 2000s.
I don't know, I was almost
Characters
tempted to
with
put
sport
some
wide eyes and bright,
SCPs on.
dynamic color palettes. Content is placed within town hubs, but some of the accessible areas
what kind
lead
of
to dead
SCPs
ends
listen
or
to?
to obtuse references.
I
to
don't know,
past
I
site
just
events.
kind of
The site
let the
itself is
playlist
still fully functional,
take in.
with
Oh, I was
users
gonna
able
say,
to create or adopt and
Vulcan
raise
or-
pets, but navigation
I like
is
the Vulcan.
burdensome. The user is often required to load many pages in succession to accomplish tasks, a now infrequently used design. Many current day users
I just listen to
internet
just
harbor
I
a
click
strong
on one that
nostalgia for the
sounds
site,
slightly
which has
interesting.
remained largely
I think the
untouched
official
over
website I'll
decades
mess with,
despite its
usually.
continued existence. So what brought this stagnation, and how has it survived so long in this state? To help answer this question, video producer Pet Simmer Julie has agreed to assist.
The Museum of Digital History that is Neopets.com displays some of the highs and lows of
Oh,
Odd's web design
Neopets.
technology.
Yeah.
Thank you for inviting me to shed light on the history of Neopets. On my channel, Pet Simmer Julie, I cover the gaming niche Neopets Defined. My love of browser-based virtual pet simulations began with Neopets and continues today. Advancements in online gaming eclipse the browser model, and many games are at risk of disappearing forever. My channel plays a role in virtually archiving games that could otherwise be lost to time. Anyways, let's get into the good stuff. Why did Neopets stop growing?
It was a pain in the ass to take care of your goddamn Neopets.
In the late
Motherfuckers
1990s,
starved all the
concept
time.
I know! That was my problem. It's like, okay, cool, I'll binge for like 3 days and then like I won't touch them for 4 and it's like, oh nope, it's gone.
unprecedented sales amongst a young audience.
You let them starve for an extra just 1 day and a half or a quarter of a second.
No
It's like,
kidding.
oh, no.
At the same time, computer
Bastards.
literacy for
Son of
children
bitches.
increased as desktops
How dare they
became
die
more
on
and
me.
more available to suburban
They
cities.
deserve
Video
to-
gaming grew more
They should
mainstream.
live
It was
in my
during
behalf
this
and
time
battle
that
for me.
university
Like
student
Pokemon.
Adam Powell conceptualized a new virtual world, one where users would be able to play as a creature called a Neopet. As the Neopet, the player could explore a fantasy realm and meet with other players from a top-down perspective. The program would use a coding language called Java, a fairly new creation at the time. Powell's knowledge, however, didn't cover Java, nor did he trust his visual artistic skill.
So, he shared his idea with
Oh,
his girlfriend
knew
and
at the
digital art
time.
hobbyist, Donna Williams. They came up with a game design similar to early Zelda games. Powell and Williams hired a Java developer and began building the website while they waited for the developer to complete the applet. Williams' original site art was rudimentary but served the site's needs. Working hand in hand, they were able to bring the site to life within a year and launched on November 15th, 1999. As for the Java applet,
Really?
it never came to be. With the Java applet behind them, Neopet's perspective shifted. Instead of being a Neopet and interacting with the world of Neopia through that creature, the player is a Neopet owner. Users could control the Neopet's fate and interact with them. The website became something between an RPG and an online pet simulator.
Now that the virtual world aspect had been dropped, Powell and Williams could set to work, iterating on the site. Quickly, however, over 500 new accounts were being created a day, with news of the site spreading by word of mouth, a number far beyond what the two could sustain. To solve this problem and to capitalize on the site's success, Powell and Williams sought an investor, and they found one only
Random
a month after
slimes.
the site's launch. His name was Doug Doring. He was the CEO of a market research company named after him, and he quickly began putting together a company to manage the site, which he named Neopets Inc. The company was launched in February of 2000 and located in Los Angeles, California. And
Yeah, they have some virtual games too, don't they? Like PlayStation 2 shit.
They accepted.
Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to argue with
While
how this
Doring
nether portal
operated the
spawned,
business
but
side of things and
Oh.
prepared to turn Neopets into
it's a portal.
profitable venture,
Congratulations.
Powell and Williams continued their work. New pets were
What happens when I
occasionally
activate this
created
one then?
and
Does it
new
go back to the
features
same
added,
spot I
which
had
often
before?
heavily incorporated the input of the exponentially growing community.
Oh, it
For
does.
example,
Okay.
an online trading card
Right,
game
'cause I
was
didn't close
released
this portal
with a
down.
duo
Shit.
petitioning the community for card concepts, and guilds
Damn
were
it.
created for players with similar interests to
Well,
gather. The number
works
of
enough
small
for me.
attractions, such as a wishing well and a soup kitchen, were also added, but it was none of these things that would inevitably place it under the critical eye of the media. Doug Doring was a different kind of visionary from Powell or Williams. In his work at his firm, he had trademarked a novel method of advertising, which he called immersive advertising.
Immersive advertising is a way to get a marketing element in front of a user by slipping it into the game environment. On Neopets, that means integrating brand advertising into the Explore map and building brand experiences for users to interact with. An example would be visiting an on-site McDonald's and feeding your Neopet an item from the McDonald's menu. Baking brands into Neopets brought some flack with it. The game was becoming popular with a young crowd, and critics claimed that children wouldn't be able to discern between editorial content and aggressive marketing. While the ads didn't attempt to direct sales, they could build brand awareness or affinity in an otherwise child-safe space. Despite the criticism for the tactic, the Neopets team didn't back down from immersive advertising, meaning it was probably a very efficient way to make money. This type of digital marketing was wildly ahead of its time. In order to sell an advertiser on the concept of immersive advertising, the Neopets team would likely have had to report user interaction metrics to the partner, including click-through rate, page views, and time spent on the page. It only makes sense that a new medium would explore new pay models.
As the site changed and grew and new features were added, the user base increased at a rate that took Powell and Williams by surprise. By May 10th of 2000, the number of accounts registered to the site surpassed 500,000, a number especially impressive given the limited scope of the internet
Come
at
on,
the
Neopet.
time. and the
When most of
speed
everything was
far
DSL and fucking dial-up?
A small team
Still?
of visual
Kind of?
designers and coders were
This is getting into
assembled to
high-speed
solve the
stuff a
world
bit.
problem, adding new villages to the user interface to
Slowly
help
but
stream
surely.
content.
We're getting there.
Slowly but surely.
I'm just gonna watch this forest burn. I didn't cause it, I'm just letting the lava do its thing. You know, hands off God.
On protecting the increasingly valuable intellectual property.
Some people don't want to watch the world burn. Or some people don't want to burn the world. Some people just want to watch the world burn by itself.
It happens.
It's something, you know.
Transformed into legally defensible, unique species. Neopets
See how far this takes. It's a pretty dense forest. It can get interesting.
Site offering. To bring out the distinguishing aspects of species,
Watermelons
new
finally
illustrations were
grew.
tested for Neopets on an ongoing basis. If you are interested in seeing some of the abandoned art designs, I made a video about that. Check it out in the card in the top right corner of the video. For example, the previously similar Flotsam and Jetsam were redesigned with polarizing creative direction. Updating artwork and testing poses was a strategy that created Neopet species super.
I almost smacked Sniper the other day.
Of Doring's business model that's
Oh.
So, yeah, I was being nice. I decorated his house for him, so I gave him a full library. But instead of an enchantment table, I put a chair with a lantern.
This manifested in minor
He's like, oh, well, I would have liked an enchantment table. You know, I can't do everything for you, bitch. I'll make your own enchantment table. But now you have a cool reading section. Enjoy it.
We also had a lot of obscure celebrities
Gosh.
in office for tours. Perhaps
It's so picky.
I want this. I don't want to do this.
According to Williams,
I don't want to pay my taxes. I don't believe in capitalism.
arguments would take place, but the Dorings stood by.
Oh god. Though it was funny for a while, he couldn't figure out where all the bees were coming from, and I kept spawning bees in his house.
Only after multiple heated meetings.
Where does the bee keep coming from? Why are you in this house? I'm standing in your house with an egg in my hand.
It's
like, I wonder.
I love you,
If only we
Sniper.
can discover. It's like, if only we can discover this weird mystery.
I'll help you solve this mystery. I find it's more amusing that I like that he wasn't even considered for the fact that it was me. Even though I'm the one that does this stuff.
By increasing the number of available activities, Neopets, and items.
Well, at least you know he's innocent to your antics.
True.
But this was
Which makes them so much fun sometimes.
to promote these additions and improvements, the team wanted to
He
hold
tries to
site-wide
trust me.
events, rewarding players
I try not to
with
do him too wrong, but wow, this
and
horse is burning pretty good.
returning to the site. These events, however, would require
Place has got some good tinder to it.
Yeah.
design and
Must have
Well,
not
this is
rained for a
another-
few days.
would be necessary to maintain the
This
audience
is another
they have
villager now.
religiously gained. Their first event
Did you send a villager to the nether?
Dr. Sloth, who sought
Well, I
to
eventually have to
everyone's
send a lot of
Neopets.
villagers to
Though
the
it would
nether, but
eventually prove
this one
abnormal in
found
many
his own
ways,
way here.
The event did set the trend for introducing new
It's
additions.
be like
in
that.
this case, a new area to explore and
It's
a new
his fault.
Neopet. The event
He knew what he was
lasted
walking
for
into.
9 days. Other events involving the dozen or so
You see the way
staff
he's
members would occasionally
dressed?
occur,
He's
with
asking
staffers
for
consistently
it.
dying
That's
in some
awful.
gruesome yet comedic fashion, accentuating the connection
Harlots!
between the development
Sluts!
and the players.
Oh.
We saw continued exponential growth as the years went by, with millions more people making
Oh, what
accounts
the
and
shit?
abnormally
Why
high
is it
user
putting me up
retention.
here now?
By May of
But yeah, so it's been
2001,
super cute with how
from 1 million
how
unique accounts
Pooh,
to
Pooh's
10
been
million.
very
2
upset that
months
you've been
later,
sad.
The number had increased to 15 million.
That's not the wording I want, but
We good friends.
yeah.
They even managed a
It's been
deal with
cute to
Wizards of the
watch.
Coast to make the online trading
Oh.
card game into a physical one, following the trend of other popular youth-oriented intellectual properties. But with this attention came the inevitable negative press.
I'll leave Minecraft if you
Vast and
leave.
confusing playground for
I
parents
might
to
chop liver to you, Boo.
parent who
I might
didn't
chop
get to
liver.
talk to strangers at the mall now saw their kids spend hours on the Neopets forums. Neopets came into popularity when the field of child safety online was just developing. Online predator fears were at an all-time high, and
Oh.
the legal system had yet to catch up with technology. Additionally, Neopets' international reach meant dabbling with conflicting cultural values and taboos. In April 2004, an Australian show called Today Tonight ran a segment claiming that Neopets players could only win Neopoints through poker, blackjack, and other forms of gambling. The mother of the child featured in this segment was afraid
not
that
wrong.
Neopets was trying to get her son addicted to gambling. This story broke during a Neopets promotional partnership with McDonald's. The scandal strained the relationship between the companies, and Neopets rolled out a ban on gambling games for all of Australia.
The Neopets team,
Oh.
Turd, continued to explore controversial methods of monetization. Their first major change came in 2004 when the company began to run banner ads in conjunction with their native advertising. To remove these banner ads, Neopets Inc. offered a premium membership. With the company becoming more and more profitable, it began to attract more attention from corporations. In 2005,
Good old
Neopets
premiums.
was bought by Viacom for $160
You gotta
million. Viacom
The
was
test
one of the
thing?
most massive media conglomerates, with ownership over MTV, Comedy
It'd be like
Central,
that.
and
It
Nickelodeon.
is. It's
Seeing
just
the
one of those.
popularity of Neopets with their young demographic,
I can't say much. I pay for
the
YouTube.
opportunity to utilize
Just,
Neopets' brand
just to have the auto
Yeah, I-
fucking play
They
and
began to
play
use
and.
the IP with seemingly little
Yeah,
discretion.
I pay for
What's a
YouTube.
better way to get a brand
Just so
in
I
front of a
don't
bunch of
fucking-
kids than making a feature film?
I want to support my
Warner
creators,
Brothers
but also
entered
like
talks for staffing up and producing
don't
an
like ads.
animated Neopets
Mhm.
film. This was the heyday of pumping out Neopets merchandise and brand paraphernalia. Limited 2 was brought into the distribution mix for selling plushies, the branded magazine, and the paperback Neopets Puzzles and Games book. In 2006, Neopians ahead of their time with a cell phone could pay $2.99 a month to connect to Neopets Mobile, an early game application. If you were like me and somehow convinced your parents to buy the Island Berry Crunch cereal, you know how truly awful that experience was. But it came with a special promotional Neopets trading card. Viacom tested how far they could push the success of Neopets by using it as a jump-off point for other virtual worlds. Pet Pet
Oh, wow.
Park was a virtual world that featured
There's a raiding village just a little bit from
Pet Pet Park
normal
launched in
village.
2008. KeyQuest, a multiplayer
God damn it,
digital board game,
the
launched
one.
in 2008. Treasure Keepers tested the water of Facebook gaming. The Neopets Habitarium game rolled out in 2011. Other attempts to throw everything at the wall to see what would stick included a trifecta of console games. The PlayStation Portable got Pet Pet Adventures,
Mhm.
A Wand of Wishing. The Neopets Darkest Fairy launched for PlayStation 2. The DS, Wii, and PC got Neopets Puzzle Adventure.
But many of these ventures failed. The Facebook game Treasure Keepers, which was launched in August of 2011, was closed only 4 months later in December of the same year. The trading card game, which had been
wasn't
started
Neopets
before
Online the
Viacom's
only
purchase,
thing that
was
survived?
dropped in 2006, only 3 years after its creation, and while there are no available sales
Oh.
figures for the console games, it's likely that they were middling
Yeah, 'cause
based
it's shut
on
down
mediocre
now, I
reviews and the
think.
limited number produced. As for the feature-length
Only like a
animated
fan
movie, Viacom
keeps
had
it
been
up.
suspiciously silent. After a general site revamp in 2007, progress on the site slowed, with gradually decreasing content additions, and with it, fewer interactive plots. No new Neopet species had been added since 2006. One area, Lutari Island, was left as a vestigial remnant, having only been accessible through Neopets Mobile, which was discontinued in 2009. Perhaps one of the larger blows to the company was when the original founders left Neopets Inc. in June of 2007. Though on relatively amicable terms, Donna would later say that, quote, "We really didn't feel like they were at all interested in what we had planned for the site. They didn't actually try to stop us leaving or even contact us at any time after we left to get our feedback on anything. That seemed really strange for us. We didn't leave on bad terms or anything. We just said we wanted to leave and they said, okay."
That is awkward.
Eventually, with profits from the intellectual
Probably just
property
didn't want anything
slowing,
else to do with it.
Viacom sold off Neopets to a company called Jumpstart for an undisclosed amount in 2014. The purchase was puzzling, since Jumpstart was a software developer known for their games such as Jumpstart First Grade, Second Grade,
raining
etc.,
kelp.
and what precisely they wanted to do with Neopets was unclear. Upon acquisition, Pet Pet Park, Habitarium, and KeyQuest were taken offline.
Oh, the
likely
sushi!
due to the lack of infrastructure to maintain them and their
It's
limited
sashimi.
profitability.
Mm,
Almost
sashimi.
immediately, things began to break down.
God,
In
I really want
September,
sushi.
Jumpstart began the
Our
arduous
Chinese
process
restaurant finally
of
opened up.
migrating Neopets servers, but while this was
Oh,
occurring,
yeah, you
the
tell
word
me.
filters
Yeah!
were offline. With the software unavailable, moderators were unable to effectively control the once strictly
Sounds so
managed
good right
message
now.
boards. As soon as this was discovered by some foul-mouthed users, word spread, and people began posting purposefully provocative threads, such as, "Eat my homo butt, Kyle," "How do I make crystal meth?" "Hail Satan," and "Do you think Frederick from Fire Emblem would have a firm butt if you grabbed it?" This
Oh,
day,
come on, that's a reasonable question.
the Neo
Come on.
That's an
They need to know.
After this incident, others
Why
cited
that
No.
comment? Why that comment?
Many of these
Take
problems were
notice.
fixable, some were just removed. One of the most visible was the active users feature on the homepage, which was literally
Why? Why not one?
the pervasive NeoFriends online box consistently showed a snapshot of the users online at the time the server migrated. Other elements,
I love
like
the
Punch
internet.
Like Sid, haven't made enough
I do
sense since
too.
the migration.
Again, man,
That's a wild ride.
we need to wander through sex toy reviews.
A majority of the Neopets Inc.
Yes,
staff was
I 100%
A
agree.
public post by David Lord, CEO of
Oh,
He stated
wait,
that,
no, I'm
quote,
pretty sure we've asked you this question. Especially since we're under quarantine, I think there's a few of us that would like to get together and read.
He clarified
You watch Game Grumps.
Neopets is not
The one guy that Danny reads off of sometimes. His fan fictions, Sonic fan fictions.
Oh, I have no idea.
No? Okay. Yeah. It's Sonic's Ultimate Harem, but it's not within the Sonic universe. It's outside Sonic universe. All of outside of Sonic universe. He's already porked all the girls in Overwatch and Zelda universe.
Naturally.
Stuff like that.
Obviously.
But Little Sonic, that's it. His name is called Little Sonic.
Since the news of the acquisition, the NeoFriends online feature
Yeah.
is beta and is now a function.
But he's like has over 100 fanfics of Sonic banging.
mean a relaunch of KeyQuest.
Various
Jumpstart
characters.
has
Yeah.
was their intention after taking it
So
offline.
we thought it would be kind of fun to sit down and all of us, set up a few rules to change the reader and have a good chuckle of reading terrible Sonic fanfiction.
You know what? I'm down. I have a soft spot for bad fanfic. I love it.
Again, what else do we have to do with our time?
Beautiful. Exactly.
Might as well sit together and share terrible fanfiction with the world.
Read bad fan fiction. Get drunk, maybe.
Oh fuck yeah!
World's on lockdown right now. Got nothing better to do. Here, we only have chillaxing hours.
Oh, okay.
Okay. To-do list. We trust. Open it up. Find a villager reader. Found it.
Yes. Poof.
General farm.
Down the rabbit hole.
This should be interesting. Star Citizen.
Oh yeah, I saw this one.
When first
think
viewing
yesterday?
one of the gameplay demos
Huh?
of Star Citizen, it can be
I
easy
think yesterday I saw this one.
Oh.
The environments
Again,
are
you binged it, didn't you?
beautiful, the flying is
Yeah, I
satisfying
binged
to watch,
quite a few
and
of
the
them.
seamless transitions from space to a fully rendered
Though I think
planet
this one
are
is
stunning,
incomplete,
as is the ability to walk
because
around
it's
the
not
ships
up
while
to
they're
date.
being flown. A quick glance at the game's
think it was
website
released
reveals
2016?
that they have raised almost $130 million
Yeah, I don't know.
and counting, while another section claims that there are numerous A-list actors for it. Searching for information online will generally turn up both zealous support and staunch opposition, along with tepid, dubious interest. These searches will often leave the question largely unanswered. What exactly is Star Citizen?
What is it? What could it be?
On
It
October
is a
15,
Beetlejuice.
2012, a new
Oh,
game
God.
publisher under the name Cloud Imperium Games launched an independent crowdfunding campaign for their first game, entitled Star Citizen, asking for $2 million. The proposed game was to be a space simulation, a genre that had mostly died out around the end of the 90s, set in an open game world. The campaign states that, quote, "It's a complete universe where any number of adventures can take place, allowing players to decide their own game experience. Pick up jobs as a smuggler, pirate, merchant, bounty hunter, or enlist as a pilot, protecting the borders from outside threats." The economy was to be constantly changing in real time, with supply
Damn them aliens! Build them walls!
in different parts of
I
the
can't
world.
let them in!
Along with
They'll
the
build a space
gameplay
wall.
was promised what they called a Newtonian physics
Me
system,
being a
in which
plasma.
flying through the vacuum of space is realistically simulated
The
through
galactic
use of
president,
moving
Tramp.
thrusters controlled with a fly-by-wire
God.
system, so that if any individual
Bright
person
purple
fails,
skin.
movement is appropriately affected. This persistent universe would be paired
He's
with a
bright yellow
single-player
like a
campaign as well.
regular ass
Many of
fucking
these
neutron
features
star.
were shown in videos
Totally.
God.
funded prototypes.
Can't make direct eye
Stunning
contact.
Visuals, animations, and high polygon count models, all presented by the game's producer. Chris
Fucking
Roberts,
holds his hand up
aided
like a
by
piece of
cheesy
bread
green
whenever
screen
he's
effects.
waving at someone.
I dreamt of being a hotshot
Big ol'
pilot
loof.
in the galaxy or a livable rogue making my way across the cosmos.
It's like, got your bread.
Reward tiers included ownership of ships, which would be flyable when the game was finished.
Yeah, I understand people like spent a lot of money on this game.
At this point, the game's projected
Like an
release
absurd
date
amount
was
of money.
2014. Roberts' presence on the project was a major selling point. He was a prolific and well-known game developer whose career began in the 80s when he worked chiefly as a designer for numerous titles both well-known and obscure, most notably Ultima 5. In 1990, however, he released the game for which he is most known, Wing Commander, for which he served as both producer and lead designer. This game capitalized on the excitement around space combat proliferated by Star Wars, and critics praised it for emulating the feeling of dogfighting in space while still remaining accessible to a new audience. It quickly became a bestseller, and is largely credited with launching the popularity of the space sim genre that would persist throughout the decade. Wing Commander itself received numerous sequels and expansions, which garnered generally positive reviews and made very large returns. Near the end of the decade, however, Roberts gained a reputation for over-promising on his games. This was encapsulated with his game Freelancer, which was touted to have a
No Man's Sky!
universe, but was subject to numerous delays.
No, that was by
Development began
Oh yeah,
in
that's another
1997,
dude.
and when it was first announced in 1999,
That whole drama
Roberts
with him.
declared that the release would occur in fall of 2000, just
Poor
a year
people.
later. However, this date was
Oh, that's right. Actually, I gotta
continually
go
pushed back
to the
point
peen.
that the studio ran out of money and was forced
Check
to
out the
enlist
peen!
financial aid of Microsoft.
I want to put something in the
Only in
peen.
2000
Oh, go for
Doesn't
it.
sound
was the game
right.
finally released.
You can
Years
just,
later,
you know, put
though
yourself
the game
into
was
the...
missing many of the features
Okay.
announced, the critical
Just
reception
enough room.
was
Is this
still
just-
positive, and most
is this
reviews
just a
gave
bar?
it an 80% or better. After the release of Freelancer,
barrels in
Roberts
the bar,
left the
though.
video game scene to
Wait, what's
produce
up?
movies, which almost universally
Oh, I meant the
received
TP
either
room.
mixed
Oh.
or negative reviews and either made little money or lost money, including Lord of War and Lucky Number 11. Despite Roberts'
Yeah,
limited
Lord of War is a
success
fucking
over the
dope movie. I
previous
don't know why
decade,
people
many
didn't like it.
nostalgic fans reacted with excitement to see the name behind Wing
Never
Commander
seen it.
attached
Interesting
to a
story.
new project.
It's
Within a
basically
day of
like
crowdfunding
a story
campaign going
explaining
live,
like
they had raised over
someone that was like did a lot of gun trading
nearly
towards
7,000 backers,
like
averaging
Africa and
almost
stuff between
$100
the
per backer
states.
if the numbers on the site
Oh,
Super
okay.
interesting movie.
However, Cloud Imperium
has,
was not expecting such a massive
David Cage
rush
is
of
the main guy.
visitors, and the site
I
promptly
love Crazy
crashed
Cage.
after a day. And so, a backup plan was instituted.
Oh, I gotta go to the snipers real quick.
I think this is a little harder than I first thought. We were completely overwhelmed by the amazing response we got when we announced Star Citizen. But unfortunately, our servers were even more overwhelmed than we were and went down for a few days. So we're just at the tail end of getting it all back into order.
Where is
but in the
his
meantime,
mailbox?
the kind folks at Kickstarter have offered to help out, and we'll
Mailbox?
be launching a Star Citizen Kickstarter page.
Yeah, everyone's got kind of
On
like
the
a mailbox.
Kickstarter page, they added a number
I don't
of
know where
reward tiers.
Snipers
To
is.
receive a copy
I
of
don't
the
think he
game,
has
the
one.
backer only had to
I don't
commit
think I have a
$100,
mailbox.
But some of the tiers were exorbitantly
I
expensive,
got a mailbox.
with the highest being $10,000. The 2 million
Yeah,
goal was met
give him some
quickly,
melon
and so
seeds.
additional stretch goals were added, including extra ships and star systems. During this time, media
Shall
outlets
name
were
them.
discovering Star Citizen as well, and they began running articles on it, increasing its exposure. By the time the campaign was
Dark
finished a month
nuggets.
later, the total raised just
Dark
exceeded $5.5
There we
million
go.
donated
It's
by
his melon
almost
seed.
80,000
You're leaving them weird
Disgusting.
notes.
fueled even further media
Yeah,
attention,
basically.
and it served as a success story for this relatively
Yeah,
new
yeah.
method of gathering funds. Due to the publicity it was receiving, Cloud Imperium decided to leave the donations open to continue raising money, appropriately
Now, where
adding
is his
stretch goals
TP
as
going
more money
back?
was raised. But after the hype had died down, the company continued to receive between $5,000 and $10,000 a day from new backers
Jeez.
and those pledging for extra packages.
Oh yeah.
During this time, Cloud Imperium expanded production, working out of 2 different offices in 2 different locations,
There we go.
both in
TP.
America. The smaller and quainter one was in Austin, where the team began work in January of 2013. The other was in Los Angeles, into which the rest of the crew moved in April. Throughout the rest of the year, regular updates with steady progress were posted through the website and through their YouTube channel.
Wait, where's the
with
P?
videos on ship designs as well as
Oh.
interviews with developers. On August
I'm at the
24th,
TP room right now.
2013, these updates culminated in the first module released for Star Citizen, the Hangar module,
Hello.
which was revealed at Gamescom
hi.
in Germany.
Alright, so we've got to go to the main one? So what? Takes us there? What's this thing?
What?
Sky's in his house. Oh, this is it. Down here.
Only 2 months later, a large
Yeah.
convention
Yeah.
specifically for the Star Citizen
Oh, Sky's
project,
house?
aptly named CitizenCon,
Yeah.
was held to show even more progress, including planet-side environments, along with other footage from the 2 separate studios under the Cloud Imperium banner. However,
There we
with
go.
this celebration came some worrying news. On December 16th, 2013, Chris Roberts released
Oh,
a
okay,
public
it's over
letter
here.
stating that the game's dogfighting module would be delayed indefinitely. We had 2 choices, he explained in a letter to the public. Either fork
That's their
development
little
and spend
farm
time
here.
building something that would involve throwing away work in order to meet the December deadline and deliver something that wouldn't have the level of polish I'm happy with, or stay on
Oh,
course to build
they
something
definitely
that would lead
expanded this area.
directly into the
We've-
finished game.
We've been having a good
Funding had
time.
already been steadily increasing over the course of 2013. The
Careful.
release of the Hangar module would catapult the funding past 35 million by the end of the year, with the company having grown to a total of
So I
48
believe this is the
employees,
auction
with another
house?
91 contracted from other companies. Turbulent was hired to help design web
I haven't had a
tools
chance
such
to
as the
look at
Star
it
Map,
yet.
and Ilphonic was hired to create the
Hey.
first-person shooter module entitled Star Marine. At this point,
Nice.
Ilphonic
It's a
had
lot
not
of
yet
layouts.
released the infamous game Sonic Boom:
Oh,
Rise of
Jesus.
Lyra.
Oh my dear God, that's a lot of
Less
layouts.
than a year away, backers
Moth would be
continued
happy.
to flood in, and in January of
is auction
2014,
house
a
anyway?
new office
Um,
was
Just gonna
opened
put,
in
like,
Manchester,
NPCs in
England,
here?
specifically to work
More or
on
less, we'll have like
campaigns.
1 or 2 display animals and
The
a
other
dispenser
offices
for
quietly
eggs of it.
continued on their work through to the next year.
Oh.
Hey,
However, the
money
scope of
and-
the game had increased immensely.
Okay.
More ships, more features.
Oh wait,
more
oh, this is the back of the
occupations being
bakery.
announced as
Or
more
the
money was received.
bathhouse.
Many accused Chris Roberts and his team.
So this is a random house that he
phenomenon wherein
built.
The project's scope becomes far more than ever can be delivered. The difference here, however, was the project's budget was continually fluctuating, and as it
And
grew,
this is
the
more or less
ever-ambitious
town.
Roberts saw the possibility to create something
Yeah.
even bigger and better, but it was
I
too
got bored.
Didn't
I,
know that I'm-
I built a park
Yeah,
over that
2014
direction,
began,
and then this
updates
is not a
became
peen.
bigger and less frequent. Video of ships in production seemed to slow
I take it
to a
the,
crawl,
uh,
and the most revealing
the
show
top
on
down
the
is a little
YouTube
more
channel
not a
became
piece.
Yeah,
for the
yeah,
charity
yeah.
Chris Roberts would answer questions
Okay,
sent
well.
by subscribers who were paying extra money.
Shit,
for
this
more
complicates
detailed
things.
This is not the sex
These
dungeon.
10 questions, however, were not often accompanied by any images or video footage of game assets, and left the audience largely
Well, I have
disconcerted.
something to put
Much had been
in
promised in the
this
stretch goals,
area.
and suddenly
Oh,
I don't know.
progress seemed to be slowing.
What's a good spot that's like mantly?
Antony?
Has, like, a
Well,
single point.
well, at some point, you know, this leads into the master bedroom. I'm gonna put armor on it. If
On
something
June
stare
3rd,
at people.
2014, the Arena
Fair
Commander
enough, fair enough.
dogfighting module was
Um,
launched to much fanfare.
Freaking-
Playing in a local lobby seemed mostly smooth, if not buggy, but the performance with other players on Cloud Imperium's servers
Oh!
was
There we
sharp
go.
Yay!
even
We have an
with graphics
egg!
settings, leaving most
Yeah,
players
the
feeling
dragon egg.
unsatisfied and
Yay!
frustrated. After
For the
releasing
peen!
Make sure not to
dogfighting
ever
module,
right-click it,
Cloud
'cause it will
Imperium
disappear.
again went
Oh.
mostly silent.
Oh, yeah.
Teleports
Small
randomly,
incremental
so
updates were released
might wanna
for
put a
Arena
sign that's just
Commander,
like, do not
including
click.
racing mode, and more ships were added over time.
We'll add some
During
ugly
the next
fencing.
Gamescom in August, there was even
Yeah, but
more
the egg is now in the peen.
The multi-crew ships were buggy with
It's
low
locked and
ranges,
loaded.
and the game
There's a
crashed.
possibility
Sorry,
of
not a peen, not a
pregnancy.
peen.
CitizenCon was
It's not a peen.
disappointing.
We're no longer abstinent.
There's no veins overhead or anything like that in main hallway. Or...
The concerns of onlookers.
Oh,
A
this is
large
cool. I
number
like
of
the
fans
bakery.
remained hopeful, but critics began slamming the game. Some saw the delays as a way to make the best game
I
possible,
wish you could just
but
like
others
right-click
began
stairs to sit
see
on
the
them.
game as a
I
scam.
know. But yeah,
Most
there's like a
online
little
criticisms
chessboard
tended to
upstairs.
understate anything too positive, and the
Stuff like
closest
that.
any
I like
argument
it.
came to
I got
positivity
bored.
was neutrality.
At some point, I'm gonna shove a villager in here that you can buy baked
some
goods.
sections of the internet and detractors
Nice.
in others, occasionally butting heads in the comment sections of videos and articles.
I really wish we could, like, set beers down and...
into brutal arguments.
Yeah.
Despite the enthusiasm from the former party, much of the community's interest and faith now hinged on
Sorry, it's like an
Star
impulse just
Marine's
looking at you.
slated
You gotta look. Hey, you never know with me what might be shoved in one.
Blind curiosity, you know. It'd be like that.
Yeah.
That's cool.
To make matters worse for Cloud Imperium, 2 games were beginning
Weird
to
stuff
muscle
that I've been
Star
building,
Citizen's Arena that year. Elite Dangerous.
Then I got bored and I built this.
The former had launched its
Gazebo!
campaign
I
during
have the white gazebo. Please don't attack the gazebo.
and though it was also
Gazebo!
delays, this project seemed to be far more
Gazebo!
on track. The latter, a
Why
space
you
game
give me
focused on exploration,
vision?
had just been announced the previous
My
year and received
eyes.
massive amounts of positive attention.
You'll see
from
all.
13 VGX awards for its vibrant color palette and scope of its gameplay, as well as the
Gazebo.
ability
It's
to
the
land on
worst.
massive, lush procedures.
Well, I wanted it to be a slide, but you can't really slide downstairs, nor is there anything to do so yeah.
Especially crowd-funded games. In 2012,
all I could do.
the Yogscast channel on YouTube had successfully crowdfunded almost $570,000
It kind of
for
works.
their game, Yog Ventures, to be released in December of that year.
Just stuck
However,
drowning
numerous
yourself in the
delays,
pools
they
again.
announced the project
Oh no,
was
no, no, sorry, that was
in
Baron.
2014
Baron drowned himself in the
with no
pools.
remorse for the backers who had lost their money. This occurred to
He get
co-stars
bored.
as
He
well.
just wanted to hang out in voice chat and
2012,
kind of in Minecraft, so he just drowned himself in the pond.
delays until 2014 before it was finally cancelled. This pattern was cropping up more and more to the point that clickbait lists were being written about them, and it seemed that Star Citizen would inevitably follow the same route.
Place
However,
like chicken.
some believe that it had the hype to
Oh, it's
continue
cat.
receiving money so that it would
Oh,
remain in
you,
development
you
phase
son of a bitch! How could you?
I make a habit of murdering every single one of them I see.
This isn't about making a game anymore, but
Yes.
more so about
Ever since the rabbit and
zealous
cat
fans
apocalypse,
who will
I've
spend
just
as
been...
much money as humanly
I was hoping it
possible
would
to
murder the
ensure that they're
chickens,
right.
but it keeps running away.
Oh, it's probably because I'm here. Here,
Yeah.
if I go
Oh,
away,
it does.
probably
As
should.
long as humanly possible, and they're going to delay that point where you can get a full.
Yeah, there you go.
accurate
See?
Oh, okay.
very
It's just because mobs
and
don't,
the
they
actual
register.
combat. Despite these
What is it,
misgivings,
like,
attacks,
action
bad
before
omens, and
passive
lack of
actions?
updates, the controversy
There's some
helped
complicated
generate
shit with
awareness
mobs
for
that
the
I
game,
don't
and money
understand.
continued to pour in.
All I know is
To
just
help promote
spawn
growth,
locations
Cloud
and
Imperium Games
blah
began
and
holding
blah.
what they
All
called
that good stuff.
concept sales, with detailed descriptions and concept drawings of ships so that backers could pledge money to receive them upon release of the game. Despite Star Citizen's tarnished reputation, the
Hey.
total amount of
Hey.
money raised had nearly
There's a big
doubled
fella.
from 12 million to over 60
You just have name tags of eh.
full-time employees had grown from 48 to
Don't
over
question
160.
Never question it.
Don't ask questions you're not ready to get the answer to.
I can handle
like,
the
oh, no.
answer, man. I can handle it.
As Star Citizen's funding grew, their public opinion
Hey.
worsened. Predictably,
It's like,
Star
oh,
Marine was
God.
not launched in April of 2015, but unlike the
Sorry, I was
dogfighting
hungry. I needed
module, Star
cooked
Marine,
chicken.
as it was made by IllFonic
I like that you're just
never
double
made it
fisting
into the game.
chicken.
Cloud Imperium had decided early
Oh,
on
one's
to use
chicken, the other
Guardian
one's
as
a
base,
rabbit.
heavily
Oh, okay, sorry.
due to a lack
It,
of
it was from the
communication
rabbit
between
apocalypse. I
IllFonic created
good
a
eats for
version
you
of the
know.
first-person shooter module that couldn't be
They
used
they
with
taste a
Star
bit like
Citizen's
lava,
heavily
but you
modified
can ignore
engine.
that.
Cloud
It's
Imperium
not
made
important.
Slightly charred.
scrap
It's
all of the
okay.
work that IllFonic
Unimportant
had done,
detail.
deciding instead to redo the code. The map assets that
Poor
IllFonic
cat.
designed had to be scrapped
Bye,
as well,
kitty.
because they had been built to the wrong
Bye,
scale,
kitty.
another casualty of
No
poor
crashing servers.
These,
You
along
little
with a
shit.
myriad
I've
others,
already tried.
caused
It
a
hasn't worked
mutual
yet.
antagonistic split, and Cloud Imperium Games chose instead
right.
to create
I wasn't
Damn it,
sure what
everything-
else to add to this park, though.
themselves from scratch. To ease the burden, Cloud Imperium launched a fourth studio, this one in
Yeah, I
Frankfurt,
don't know.
Germany, to assist with the
It's
back-end
been a long
coding.
time since I've been to a
None
park,
of
I'll
these
be
feelings
honest.
communicated with the community, however,
Little
and after
while.
months of saying that the
At the
module was
Golden
almost ready, the
Pin.
studio went completely
Didn't
mum on the
notice that.
topic.
You haven't
Many
noticed
of
the golden
backers
peen at
took
Scout's
to
house.
the first-person shooting element even more than flying, and frustration within the community.
That is,
Made sure I had a decoration for the bakery.
Once been incredibly transparent, was suddenly
It's,
beginning to close the
interesting,
blinds, and
to
did
say the
little
least.
to settle the concern over an already troubled game.
Well,
the prodigious
I gotta-
amount of money that was being generated meant that if Star Citizen
You ending
did
your
collapse,
existence?
the effect would be much greater
Yes.
than any other crowdfunding
Just gotta-
campaign's failure. and lawsuits would be almost inevitable. This frustration was compounded by the fact that the aforementioned Elite Dangerous had already launched to generally positive reviews, despite a number
Oh,
of
fight.
damn it, it didn't say it.
later have to be
I like it.
changed. The question
Veteran was
if
burned to
the
death
game
while
had
fighting
gone
Saturn.
on time with far fewer
Veteran?
people, what was happening with
Yeah,
Star
Saturn.
Citizen?
You'd be surprised how many people say like Setrin for some reason. Like, they
Cetrian?
overpronounce it.
In 2015, an article
I've
was
never-
posted
yeah,
to the
maybe
escapist
it's just me.
online nerd culture magazine entitled Star Citizen Employees Speak Out on Project Woes. Here, the author states that she had been contacted by 7 ex-employees and 2 current
Just keep
employees,
burning myself.
all unnamed,
Stop it.
interested in airing
Damn
their
it.
Stop setting yourself on fire.
The earlier article she wrote had attracted their attention.
Can't help it,
One
I
of
love
her sources
fire.
said that the game became
So
quote,
warm.
more about the campaign and less about the actual game. Another one admonishes the
I
scope
like
of the
how I
game,
use
saying
gold
that,
as like my
quote,
building
$90
platforms.
million for what he's pitching,
So
with
fucking useless as a
competent leadership,
resource.
you couldn't do. Others
It doesn't do
wrote,
much,
"Quote,
unfortunately.
environment. I couldn't take it," says one of the
It will
sources.
eventually,
It was
but,
by far
eh,
the most toxic
right now it's
environment I have
pretty-
ever worked in. No one had clear direction about how to do their
Soon,
jobs
soon,
well.
when the patches come out.
Pertaining to the money spent, the author explains that, quote, several different sources have indicated that the company has already used the majority of its funding, but not much has been created to show for it.
Well,
The number
I
most
can't really.
often received from
My
people
to-do
has
list
indicated
is-
that currently the company has less than
I
8
managed to get a
million
few
of what
things
was
done
raised
today.
from the crowdfunding efforts left.
Found a village for
They
the
also
free, made a
universally
roof
had
nether
visions
portal
that the
system.
studio, as
Now I
it
just need to
was,
make a
would either fail or
iron
be
farm,
bought.
gold farm,
The
and
most
XP
brutal
farm
attacks,
with.
however,
But
were
first I
leveled
need an
against
elytra
Sandy Gardner,
and
the
Enron.
vice president of the company, and Chris
So much
Roberts'
shit to
wife.
do.
One
I
source
don't want to go
alleged
back to the
that
end
she
yet.
spoke about a
More
quote
Minecraft.
desire, saying, quote, "We aren't hiring
Angry.
her. We aren't
I
hiring
can't
a
find
black
shit
girl."
in the end.
Another source stated, quote, "She would write emails with so much profanity. She would call people stupid, retard, faggot, accuse men of not having balls, and she was incredibly hostile to other female employees." Many people took
Just
this
listening
story as
off and
confirmation
on.
of much
Retard,
they
faggot.
already believed.
It's like,
However,
yes,
the
the
following
natural
day,
order.
a letter was issued
You know,
by
the
co-founder
the
of
main
Imperial
5
Games,
words
Ortwin
people know.
Freiermuth, disputing the claims made by the
On
sources,
Xbox
as well as
specifically.
the
Oh,
credibility of the
God.
sources themselves.
Good old
He says
Xbox
that,
vocabulary.
quote, "You have violated
Oh,
the
it happens a
Constitution
lot
and
in
the
stream as
Constitution
well. There's been a few times, man. I
Thoroughly
just
vet your
the only
sources
person,
and
the word the
provide
person
the
knew was the word
information
fag, and it's my
for
favorite conversation.
highly slanderous and easily disproven allegations.
Literally, that's the only thing. Your cats hate you. Your pets hate you because you're a fag.
protected by the rules applying to the free press, but rather
Yeah, okay.
Man,
with
that's
the deliberate intention of
bro,
inflicting
bro
emotional
moment.
distress and financial
He couldn't straight out say fags, or he thought he couldn't say it straight up say fag. So he was just doing a one letter at a time for a while in chat, and
personally hired 2 African-American staff members.
Regardless, you can still get banned.
oh, I know, but I was just laughing. It was good. It was.
You verified an unidentified
The lack of people's vocabulary is beautiful, and I love it.
You might be interested to know that CIG
I
does not
relish in these
issue any
moments.
company ID
It's just
cards
one of those
to
things.
any
I can't help it.
The letter
Like my
also
favorite thing when
forces
people say
further
is like, "Oh, you fucking suck." It's like, of course, I'm a girl. I'm supposed to.
Derek Smart.
What else am I supposed to do?
aired this belief in his
Would you
own
like
more
it if I
impressionable
didn't?
letter. While this claim may seem
I can
strange
bite.
at first,
I mean, we can do
may
biting.
have merit.
Biting's fine.
Derek Smart is a controversial
That's not off the table.
game developer for chiefly
I'll take a few
space
nibbles.
games whose works have a history of long
I'm dead
and
to bite.
troubled development cycles. He is most famous for attacking people on forums who
got nibbles and
criticize his
nibbles.
games, similar to Digital Homicide Studios. Only 2 months prior, Smart had issued Cloud Imperium a letter from his lawyers with an ultimatum demanding they release their finances and refund all backers who ask for it. Cloud Imperium responded with their tongue in their cheek. They dismissed him with a letter in response and refunded him his money, banning him from any further participation in Star Citizen. Smart's social media quickly became
Wow.
used to attack Star Citizen
Unsurprisingly.
while he promoted his own early access game. Almost every day, he would post tweets about Star Citizen, coupled with long, rambling blog posts, and it seemed to develop into an obsession. In the face of this, The Escapist updated their article with Chris Roberts' rebuttals, but they said that they, quote, stand by our coverage of Star Citizen and intend to continue to investigate the developing story. Despite the strong rhetoric, it appears that no further articles were written, and the Escapists seem to have halted their investigation. Still, the damage had been done, and it seemed that frustration with the game was reaching a fever pitch as Cloud Imperium Games continued their silence. But this silence would break less than 2 weeks after the original Escapist article was published.
Map room?
On October 10th, 2013,
Oh, if it's in Sky's base,
Cloud
then yeah, the
Imperium
bottom
put on
part should be.
CitizenCon.
Jesus, I never actually looked at it.
Were mixed. Some were excited, while others
Hey,
couldn't
it's
forget the
pretty
disappointing
expensive.
showing of the
It's getting
previous
there.
year. However, the progress that they showed was promising. They revealed
Oh,
that
we
they
just
were
hold
releasing
maps in our
a future
hands
version
and
of the
fill
Star
out the
Citizen
world?
universe, where people could fly their ships
Basically,
in
but you can use a
limited-sized servers,
cartography table to
quantum
kind of like
jumping to
ease the
different
process.
points and leaving their ships to float through space.
Like you can expand
Perhaps
maps
most
so it's like
importantly,
not
it showed
as
the
small
first-person
as
shooter
you get when you
features that
first
had been
initially make one.
created from the ground up after
So you
Ilfoni's
can make like
departure
super
from Star
huge maps
Citizen.
and then throw them
They
into map
also
tables.
showed a scene from the single-player game utilizing
So it's pretty
facial
nice.
and motion
It is
capture
pretty nice.
technology.
To defend the Empire,
That's what that thing's about.
and we have to be committed to that
Yeah,
attack,
that's
whatever the
Minecraft.
cost may be.
A lot of
Later
cool stuff in
revealed that
Minecraft.
Since April of that year, they had secretly
Yeah.
been recording scenes for Squadron 42 with celebrity actors, including Mark Hamill, Gillian Anderson, Gary Oldman, and Andy Serkis. After the clip, they stated their intended release date as the final quarter of 2016. They revealed the first few minutes of Squadron 42 as well, showing off the interior of the largest ship to be produced so far, which holds a crew of 50. Viewers were dubious as to the release date for Squadron 42, as well as the release date for the miniature universe, which was slated for December, approximately 2 months after CitizenCon. With uncharacteristic timing, however, the miniature universe was released within the slated timeframe, with access to a few different space stations. Along with this, a video showing off their new procedural planet tech had been released in a video called Pupil to Planet in order to show the rendering capability of their modified engine. Both were generally impressive, but many players were still dissatisfied with the bare-bones experience that was on display and felt they had been waiting for too long.
Oops.
Despite
I
this, the
accidentally-
progress shown was enough to silence some of the critics, while the footage displayed brought in a horde of new backers. By the end of 2015, the game had raised over $104 million, with approximately $15 million raised in the last 3 months of the year, due in part to the presentation at CitizenCon.
7 ender chest
The
should
total
do me
number
well.
of ships pledged at this point had reached over 1.1 million.
Million. Yeah, that is an absolute fuck ton of money. There's a lot of people wanting their own custom ships in the game that may never fucking release.
Cloud Imperium began iterating on the miniature universe, releasing patches irregularly to add features and flyable ships. Again,
Yeah, like
progress
they said in
seemed
the
slow,
video,
mostly due to
the
blockers in the back-end
was it,
technology.
the mini
By the end of
universe
2015,
modules released,
however, the permanent
but the
staff
multiplayer
had
is still
ballooned to over
not there.
250 people, and so
Which is the
progress
main
was
thing
beginning
people,
to pick
like
up
everyone's
speed.
been looking out for.
More and more
But,
ships
yeah,
were
it'll
announced
happen
as some of
eventually,
the
I
earlier
imagine.
concept sale ships were being completed and made flyable.
depends on how
Perhaps
fast
most
development
notably
goes.
was the Starfarer, a massive tanker in which players would regularly become lost while exploring. In the miniature universe, players marveled at the ability to
They
walk
must
around the
avoid
ships
feature
while
creep,
others flew and fought, all in spite of large bugs and low frame rates. It was still a far cry, however, from the experience Star Citizen promised in a single massive universe. As 2016 wore on, even more was shown, and it seemed that the progress made on the game was increasing exponentially. Patch 2.5, released in August, added persistence so that players could earn in-game cash for performing missions, which would remain between play sessions.
There we
The
go.
largest takeaway that the media was receiving, it seemed, was that Star Citizen was indeed progressing. The game also was receiving positive press in comparison to its two largest competitors, Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky. Elite Dangerous had recently come
No
under
Man's
attack
Sky.
due to the aggressive posture of its monetization. The development team revealed that some of the content promised in the
Yeah.
Kickstarter would have to be purchased
Yeah.
as expansions and add-ons, with higher total prices for some of those who had bought the game earlier. On top of this, there was heavy criticism
Did you watch
from its
the,
players,
what was it?
stating that though there were many
The
planets,
Internet
stars, and
Historian's
space
take on it?
stations, they all were extremely similar, with shallow gameplay
I
and
shall
relatively
thank
low replayability. No Man's Sky, on the other hand, had exploded into a full-blown controversy. very little information had been released to the public by the development team, while an embargo was placed on review copies towards its release. The developers claimed that this was to maintain the mystique of the game, but when it was launched, it seemed clear that the embargo was because a wide swath of the content promised by the small independent development team was missing. The beautiful environmental effects and complicated wildlife interaction from the gameplay trailers seemed to be entirely absent, and the interstellar trading was nowhere
The
to
No
be
Man's Sky
found,
video.
much like
I
the
forgot the
massive space
thumbnails
conflicts and
actually.
dynamic loyalty systems.
Yes,
In
Woman's
short,
Land.
the trailers masquerading as gameplay footage were entirely constructed cutscenes rather than generated by the game itself. The majority of the game's audience felt that the studio had lied about massive portions of
I
their
think I'm
game,
gonna
and an
go take a
absurdly
nap.
long post on Reddit was circulated, cheekily entitled No Man's Lie, with a list of promised features missing from the release. The limited content made it difficult to justify the full $60
Basically,
price tag.
long-form
The game
audio.
has mostly negative
But yeah,
scores on Steam with 31
Internet Historian has a lot of really good videos if you ever get bored and want to check them out.
Yeah.
It's good.
It is fun to watch. Fun to listen to. But anyways, you have an amazing night, dear.
And little has been
You as well. Have a good one. Make sure not to party too hard.
Party harder! Party harder!
Enjoy your White Claws.
It wasn't too bad. I enjoyed it. But good night, love.
Better for Cloud Imperium
Hey,
as they were about to
bye.
perform two of their biggest reveals to date. On August 19th, Cloud Imperium
Yeah, how
Games
about this,
revealed the
continue
first ever
finishing?
vertical slice of their game. Though many features of the final game were missing, the demonstration lasted for over 50 minutes, showcasing numerous features including facial animation capture, mission systems, and user interface. Just like their other presentations, a man on the side of the stage was playing the game, going through rehearsed motions. This time, however, it seemed almost to be mocking No Man's Sky. Perhaps most importantly, however, it showed the planetary technology that had been developed. The early parts of the video features a ship entering the atmosphere of a planet and landing, while a later section showed two of the land-based vehicles that had been created. The reception was extremely positive, and online magazines were heralding Star Citizen as the game to fill the void left by Elite Dangerous and No Man's Sky. During Gamescom, however, they teased that even more would be revealed at the upcoming CitizenCon, which was happening in just a few weeks with a potential reveal of Squadron 42. The studio worked fervently to produce these demos in the short amount of time they had left, and when October 9th arrived, both fans and the media were watching intently. Partway through the CitizenCon presentation, however, it was revealed that the gameplay from Squadron 42 was not ready and that it would not be making an appearance that night.
We were hoping to show you a Squadron 42 mission, and we're not quite there yet. So we got very close. The team worked really hard, but we don't want to show it until we say this is what it's going to be like in the final game with all the polish. And
What they were able to show off, however, was just how far their procedural planetary technology had come. Another vertical slice was presented, showing a planet with multiple biomes, oceans, and flora, not to mention fauna in the form of a massive sandworm.
I do wish that, like, through Rhythm, you could watch a video through this. Now I'd have to go through and look. God damn it all.
After the half-hour-long vertical slice demonstration, it was made clear exactly what they meant when they said they were making procedural planet technology.
doing things.
Rather than having a key generate an entire planet, like its competitors had done, Star Citizen's technology was a
Yeah,
tool
don't
for
do that.
designers to craft planets. They showed this off by allowing one of their designers to construct an entire landing environment, complete with a landing pad, surrounding rocks, foliage, and fauna in less than 5 minutes. The dream of Star Citizen's persistent universe was beginning to crystallize in the minds of fans. Today, Star Citizen's development is continuing, and the first game in the Squadron 42 trilogy has, unsurprisingly, been delayed beyond 2016 so that more systems may be completed. However, with the sudden explosion of progress shown, many of the concerns of Star Citizen's status as vaporware appear to have been assuaged, though most
There we
retain a
go.
healthy skepticism. Concept
gonna
ships
head over there.
continue to be produced, while more
Go
transparent
enjoy Boo.
videos
He's
reminiscent
a
of the
sweetheart.
early days
Amazing
of
art.
development
She
show
also
the
does
game's
lewds on her
progress.
free time.
What Squadron 42 and Star Citizen